In the year 2026, a global mutation hit the entire human race. Everyone would transform into the last object they touched. Some poor soul turned into a giant roasted rat after eating a lamb skewer. Others instantly evolved into high-level cybernetic data streams. Touching a computer turned people into machines, while some even became literal thunder gods just by touching a lightning bolt. In my previous life, I was nothing more than a minor component. I gained the 10,000 swords return skill. I could open the gates of heaven with a single blade, but unfortunately, the world's power players crushed me like a common ant. Now, with 6 hours until the mutation, I've been reborn, and I've decided to touch a woman. I set my sights on the school beauty, Lincoln. In the last life, she was one of the few who didn't lose her humanity. She rescued me more than once, sparking feelings I never acted on. We couldn't be together then, but in this life, things change. I'm going to give her a real chance. I pulled out my phone and sent her a text. Class rep, a massive mutation is about to hit the world. If you trust me, keep your phone on at midnight. She just scoffed at the message, which I expected. But once the global mutation starts tonight, she'll definitely be reaching out to me. Night fell quickly, and I stood by the window watching the moonlight over the city. The moment my phone hit midnight, the entire earth began to tremble violently. A second later, a mysterious voice echoed in the ears of every person on the planet. The global mutation has arrived. The last object you touch will be strengthened. It will transform into part of your body for 24 hours until the mutation ends. This new life is finally starting, an era of both opportunity and absolute disaster. Lincoln must have heard that voice too, and now she'll remember my text. I'm not in a rush because everything is going exactly according to my plan. Across the world, people are scrambling to touch animals, weapons, or even museum missiles. Then, a message from Lincoln popped up. What did your text mean? Did you know this would happen? I stared at her message with a cold glint in my eyes and typed back a meeting time. I told her to meet me tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. and to delete our chat immediately. She replied with a brief, okay, never suspecting that the class nerd knew the world's secrets. Morning came, and the city dissolved into total chaos as people fought over supplies. I didn't care about the riots. I knew that soon, I'd have the power to crush anyone. As 11 p.m. approached, Lincoln grabbed an ancestral jade treasure and headed my way. Her brother, a gang member, was out with his crew hunting powerful beasts to touch. Her father was preparing to touch a rare collectible blade to gain its strength. Even her mother had her hands on a precious ceremonial sword, waiting for the end. Lincoln muttered to herself on the way, wondering what optimal solution I could possibly have. Only 1 hour left before the search for protection ends for everyone. Lincoln arrived at my house, clutching a jade treasure in her arms. She asked, Lashens, why did you call me here? What is this optimal solution? Influencers are saying we should touch powerful creatures or rare antiques to get supernatural powers. You don't happen to have some legendary treasure hidden here, do you? I shook my head and looked at the class rep. Does my house look like it holds any great treasures? Those belong to the elites. Lincoln nodded slowly, realizing I was right. True, she said. So what is this solution you're talking about? It's far on the horizon, yet right before your eyes, I replied. She looked at me, completely confused by my cryptic words. I wasn't in a rush to explain. We still had time before midnight. With 5 minutes left, I'll tell her the truth. The best thing to touch is another person. When a man and a woman touch, they gain the yin-yang constitution. It allows you to master martial arts that others can't even imagine. It might seem weaker than a weapon at first, but later, it leaves everyone in the dust. My voice was low, each word hitting her like a heavy hammer. She never expected this. Everyone else was hunting objects, but I wanted her. Let's become powerful together, I said, my voice laced with a strange pull. She hesitated, asking, of all the girls in class, why me? Why protect me? Please, believe me, this bone jade isn't the optimal solution. I am the optimal solution for you to touch. My words were loaded with information, leaving Lincoln completely stunned. Only her parents and brother knew about touching the family bone jade. No one else should have known. But now that I'd said it, she knew there was a 90% chance I was telling the truth. Your brother wants to touch a mound of ancient bones, I said coldly. Your father is choosing a sword. Your mother is touching a blade. I kept dropping these bombshells, systematically dismantling Lincoln's psychological defenses. I didn't just know her secret. I knew exactly what her brother, Lin Tianba, and her parents were planning. In that moment, Lincoln was certain that everything I said was true, and she chose to believe in my rarity. Lashens, I really didn't expect you to know so much. I don't even recognize you anymore. It's already 11:59. It seems the only object I can touch is you. I believe you. Her voice trailed off, becoming weak as she glanced at the clock, a spark of realization hitting her face. Based on the words yin and yang, she finally understood at the last second what touching a rarity meant. What was she thinking? My heart raced as a bold idea took root in my mind. In my past life, I only heard that a man and woman touching could grant the yin-yang constitution. They would become the favorites of heaven and earth, but I had never tested it personally. Thinking of this, my breathing hitched, and my gaze toward Lincoln grew even more intense. Then, Lincoln whispered 2 key words to me, Adam and Eve. The first man and the first woman. Her meaning was crystal clear. I understood perfectly, and a brilliant light exploded in my eyes. The final moment is here. Touch it. Lincoln's cheeks are flushed bright red. Everything is happening too fast, and a part of her is still hesitating. But logic wins out. To survive the coming chaos, she has to commit to this. At exactly 11:59, Lincoln and I make contact. 1 second later, it happens. Midnight strikes. A sound like a death knell echoes in the ears of every living creature. The global transformation has officially begun, and the awakening of powers starts now. Every human on Blue Star is suddenly granted a different ability. But it's not just humans. Animals are evolving into powerful, monstrous beasts. Crocodiles emerge from the water looking like jagged, giant boulders. Common rats swell in size until they're as massive as oxen. Dogs' muscles bulge as they stand upright, turning into bipedal monsters that hunt people. Monkeys' bodies liquefy, turning into puddles of water that merge with the rivers. Blue Star has descended into absolute chaos. Heavy collisions echo across the planet. Outside the room, it's a disaster. I can hear citizens screaming and the sounds of fighting. Every few seconds, a heavy thud shakes the ground, like a giant beast is prowling nearby. Inside, the atmosphere is warm and strange. Lashins, you bastard, Lincoln whispers. She's never let a man touch her like this before. Usually, even holding hands would disgust her. I stay silent, feeling the heavy weight of responsibility settle onto my shoulders. My body feels perfect. I can feel the fervent flow of blood with every breath I take. I look at her and say, "Don't worry, class leader. I'll take responsibility for this." I started to ask her what I should call her now, but I didn't even finish the sentence. Lincoln glared at me with a mix of shame and rage, calling me a bastard for being the first man to ever touch her. She told me I couldn't call her class leader anymore. From now on, it was just Lincoln. She demanded that I never touch another woman's body for as long as I lived. She warned me to keep my distance and keep today a secret, or she'd kill me herself. I listened intently to her demands and gave her a firm nod, promising to do exactly as she said. But then Lincoln pointed out the window, confused that other people's powers seemed so much more destructive than ours. I told her the yin-yang system was for longevity and cultivation, making her wonder if I was a genius or just insane. She still didn't understand how to take the first real step toward using this new power. I recited the 7 stars formula to her, a technique for gathering heaven and earth's aura that I remembered from my past life. We began to practice, and before long, we both officially reached the first layer of chi refinement. Lincoln went to the window and watched the chaos outside as newly awakened supers leveled entire buildings. She checked her phone and saw a flood of worried messages from her parents about the state of the world. She replied that she was safe for now, but needed to finish stabilizing her new energy before returning home. She also learned that her brother's heavenly spirit tyrant body had already begun to transform his physique. He could now turn his own body into a living weapon capable of staggering destruction. Even her father had awakened, merging his very soul with his blade to achieve the state of swordman unity. He was now a frontline warrior, capable of transforming into a giant sword to cleave through enemies. Her mother had undergone a similar transformation, mastering the intent of the blade just like her father. The transformation had left her mother healthier and stronger than she had ever been in her life. She can transform into the shape of a blade at any moment to join the fight. Knowing everyone in her family was safe, Lincoln finally felt a wave of relief. But when it came to her own situation, she hesitated. She didn't dare reveal too much about what we had done. After all, this involved my deepest secrets. The less said, the better, so I went to take a quick shower. When I stepped out, Lincoln stared at me, realizing my bookworm skin had changed. It had become smooth and delicate, and my facial features were sharper than ever. A trace of moisture still clung to my skin as I dried off. I took off my glasses, revealing eyes that were clear and piercing. My forehead looked broader, giving me the air of someone truly blessed. I noticed Lincoln examining me with an intense gaze. I couldn't help but touch my own face, feeling the difference. I looked at her and asked, "Lincoln, what are you staring at? Is there something on my face that I didn't wash off?" She smiled and said, "I just realized that for a bookworm, you're actually pretty handsome. But you're still too thin. I don't like skinny dogs, so eat more and bulk up." I realized then that as long as I used the yin-yang arts to gather energy, my body would keep improving, making me stronger and more attractive with every breath. Lincoln's eyes lit up as she told me, "Then teach me the arts right now." "I can't help it. I want to learn everything you know." I looked at her and nodded. "I'll show you everything." I began reciting the ancient formulas of the yin-yang arts to her. I spoke of concentration, relaxation, and the harmony of breath and spirit. I told her to fix her gaze, gather the divine light, and clear her mind. I guided her to let the energy enter the Niwen Palace and descend until her dantian felt warm. Lincoln began to recite the words along with me, her voice steady and clear. She memorized every syllable instantly, as if the technique was made for her body. This was the terrifying power of her golden flame physique, a natural genius for cultivation. I instructed her to sit cross-legged, close her eyes, and begin her meditation. I told her to focus her mental energy on the Niwen Palace deep within her brain. My voice flowed like water, guiding her through the spiritual rhythm of the transporting disc. She followed my lead, attempting to awaken her inner eye and unblock her meridians. We sat in total silence, completely immersed as the hours ticked by. I could capture the world's spiritual energy easily thanks to my past life memories. But for Lincoln, this was her very first time attempting to touch the divine. By the time we finished, Lincoln's snow-white skin was covered in a layer of black impurities. The foul-smelling toxins had seeped out of her pores, soaking her clothes through. Despite the mess, she looked at me with a radiant smile and said, "I did it. I'm finally unblocked." I watched her nourish her body, completing the cycles of the great and small orbit. It was magical, a sensation unlike anything else. Lincoln looked weak, her lips pale, but she wore a triumphant smile. "I'm glad you succeeded," I said with a small laugh. To be honest, this was my first time guiding someone, and I was worried. But her natural intelligence had carried her through. "From now on, we cultivate together," I promised. Lincoln nodded, then looked at me with concern, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. "Shan, thank you, but you look exhausted. Go rest." She could tell that guiding her cultivation had drained my physical and spiritual strength. I shook my head and told her, "Don't worry about me. Go shower first. Your body is covered in impurities and foul sweat. I'll go make us 2 bowls of instant noodles while you clean up." I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It was past 7 p.m. We had been cultivating for nearly an entire day since midnight. I noticed the city's network signal was completely dead, likely destroyed. "The world is about to get even more chaotic," I muttered. "We have to push harder." Lincoln checked her own phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages from her family. They were terrified for her safety, and the sight of their messages warmed her heart. But with the towers down, the phone was nothing more than a useless brick for hitting people. I realized her undergarments would be ruined by the impurities leaving her body. Zhou Qinglin couldn't exactly walk around with nothing underneath her clothes. Her youthful, beautiful face flushed deep red at the thought. Inside, she was screaming, "I need a change of everything, not just underwear." She felt like she wanted to die of embarrassment right there in front of me. Even though she was a confident woman who took pride in her figure, she was still conservative at heart and couldn't just show herself off. "Next time I practice this technique, I need to have a clean set of clothes ready," she muttered. She fought through the shame and said, "Shan, okay, but give me a t-shirt too. I don't want to wear this school uniform anymore. It's uncomfortable." I told her to wait a moment. After 2 lifetimes, I had learned to be more attentive. I had already prepared clean clothes for her that would be comfortable and modest. As she headed to the shower, I went to prep the instant noodles with sausage and eggs. In this crumbling world, food and resources were becoming the only currency that mattered. The day before the powers awakened, crowds had already looted the supermarkets bare. Speculators were hoarding supplies in warehouses, waiting to profit off the disaster. But I didn't bother hoarding too much at home, because stockpiles just make you a target. Soon, powerful ability users would be going door to door, stealing food and even women. My plan was simpler. Wait until I was strong enough to just take what I needed from the hoarders. In my eyes, everything out there was already mine. They were just keeping it warm for me. If I needed something, I would simply take it. This was the borrowing principle I had adopted for this life. In my past life, I followed my aunt to the supermarket to frantically hoard supplies. I did that until someone took my food by force and taught me a brutal lesson. Looking at the hot water, I thought grimly about how the internet was already down. Electricity would be next, followed quickly by the water supply. The basic necessities of life were vanishing, and it was going to kill a lot of people. Some experts called this artistic globalization the Third World War. But if Earth hadn't collided with the immortal cultivation continent, we'd be fighting the Fourth World War with sticks and stones within 6 months. I rubbed my brows, calculating the future for myself and Zhou Qinglin. Meanwhile, Zhou Qinglin didn't hesitate and quickly washed the impurities off her body. She stepped out wearing oversized clothes with her damp hair wrapped in a towel. "Where's the hairdryer?" she asked, and I pointed her in the right direction. I told her the noodles were ready and suggested she eat first. She nodded and sat across from me, the delicious aroma filling the room. Her stomach let out a loud, hollow growl that echoed through the kitchen. Hunger flooded her senses, and I gave her a small, knowing smile. We both devoured the noodles like starving animals, even drinking every drop of the broth. She licked her lips and praised my cooking, but I just told her it was a basic skill. I nodded as I watched Zhou Qinglin turn around to dry her hair. She was swimming in my oversized clothes, giving her a soft, relaxed look. Seeing her in my shirt made my chest tighten with a sudden, warm spark of excitement. She wasn't the top beauty of Nankai High for nothing. She looked stunning even in rags. She finished drying her hair and tied it into a high ponytail, her youthful face glowing. "I heard guys' clothes always smell like sweat," she said, leaning closer to me. "But yours don't smell bad at all, Li Qingshan. It's actually kind of strange." I just chuckled and told her, "That's because I actually keep myself clean." I stood up and said, "Watch closely. I'm going to show you the Dragon Tiger Fist. Combined with your breathing, this style will transform your physical condition. In a real fight, your strikes will carry the roar and the very image of a dragon and tiger. It's designed to shatter an enemy's spirit before the blow even lands. It looks as fluid as Tai Chi, but once your mind and body are strong enough, you can unleash power that shatters human limits." Zhou Qinglin nodded, her expression turning dead serious with anticipation. I cleared the room, pushing the sofa and table into the corner to make space. I began to move, channeling the memories of the Dragon Tiger Fist from my past life. The style is split, one part for daily cultivation, the other for lethal combat. As I moved, a small whirlwind began to spiral around my feet, following my rhythm. Every time I threw a punch, the faint, magical roar of a beast echoed through the air. It felt as if the world itself had become spiritual, filled with a strange, visual beauty. Zhou Qinglin's old image of me as a pathetic bookworm was shattering by the second. She watched my every move, her eyes wide with a new kind of respect. I kept the rhythm going for about 15 minutes. Finally, I brought the Dragon Tiger Fist to a close. My body was wrapped in an invisible aura of absolute calm. I felt a sense of stability I hadn't known in years. The frantic, hysterical energy of my past was gone, replaced by this technique. This is the Dragon Tiger Fist, I told Zhou Qinglin firmly. This was the first time I had used this style since my rebirth. And with my new Yin-Yang constitution, the power was on a different level. Zhou Qinglin whispered, I see it, this style is incredible. She then began to share her own insights, speaking with a sudden, sharp clarity. If every martial artist seeks a specific meaning in their path, she started, then for a cultivator, every technique is a form of art. A unique expression that evolves as we continue to grow. The more arts we master, the higher our potential becomes, she added, surprising me with her talent. I nodded repeatedly and said, Qinglin, you're brilliant. You're exactly right. In the future, we won't just fight. We'll command the water and walk through the flames. We will manipulate the very wind itself, I said, watching her eyes sparkle with wonder. She didn't know how I had mastered so many arts or how I'd find more, so she kept her questions to herself. The worry in her heart faded, replaced by a genuine, burning hope for our future. I looked at her and said, come here, Qinglin. I'm going to teach you the Dragon Tiger Fist. I explained that we were in the physical training stage, which consists of 9 distinct layers. The first 3 layers focus on the fist, the middle 3 on grappling, and the final 3 on mastering weight. I broke down the core principles before I began the formal instruction. Qinglin's face was a mask of pure focus as she absorbed every drop of knowledge I gave her. Soon, this beautiful, delicate girl began to perform the wide, explosive movements of the technique. While we cultivated in peace, the world outside had already descended into absolute chaos. Over at the Hixiang residential complex, in apartment 404, Sun Wangjin looked at his parents with a heavy heart. His father, Sun Jinhua, and his mother, Chen Ting, had made a desperate gamble during the global mutation. They had spent the entire day trying to find a powerful artifact through family friends, but found nothing. Finally, Chen Ting, a devout Buddhist, suggested they touch the family's heirloom Buddha statue. It was an imitation piece, but it had been passed down and venerated since his grandfather's time. It had nearly 200 years of history behind it. Chen Ting believed the Buddha would grant them formidable supernatural powers and endless blessings. Sun Jinhua originally wanted to touch a sharp kitchen knife to gain a combat edge, but he felt a kitchen knife was too common, too pathetic for the new world. Under his wife's influence, he chose to join her in touching the statue to secure their status as elites. They poured all their greed, ambition, and desire for dominance into that cold, imitation stone. They touched it together, but as the mutation hit, that imitation statue fused directly into their flesh. Sun Wangjin watched in horror as his parents' bodies began to warp and distort. Their human forms melted into a single, writhing mass of golden, pulsating meat. When the transformation finished, they had become a nightmare with 2 arms and a single, fused leg. Their feet were twisted, looking more like thick, curved slabs of golden beef than anything human. The creature's head was a massive, irregular ellipsoid covered in mismatched, murderous eyes. It had 2 small mouths packed with rows of jagged, needle-like teeth. A long, snake-like tongue flicked out as Sun Jinhua clutched his head in absolute agony. They never expected that touching the same object would force them into this horrific symbiosis. I'm so hungry. I need to eat. Sun Jinhua groaned through the pain. Me too. Chen Ting's voice echoed from the same body. I need meat. Now. Sun Wangjin's face went pale as he told them the fridge was already empty. The mutation had given them power, but it had also cursed them with an insatiable, monstrous appetite. In just 24 hours, they had devoured every scrap of food in the entire apartment. Their bodies grew even larger, the golden hue of their flesh deepening as they craved fresh, raw meat. Despite their hideous new forms, they still clung to a shred of their human consciousness. It's dangerous outside, Sun Jinhua warned. I can hear the fighting. Don't go out there. Chen Ting's mouth let out a wet, slithering sound as she agreed to wait for the chaos to die down. Sun Wangjin stood there, his knuckles turning white as he squeezed his fists until they popped. Do you still even see us as your parents? Sun Jinhua asked with a guttural growl. His voice was ice-cold and grim, but I could still feel the weight behind it. Even now, my father's words carried that same old judgment. To him, I was just a useless kid who wasted his education. But I knew the truth about my parents. They loved me unconditionally and always had my back, no matter what. I remembered breaking a neighbor's computer as a kid and deleting all his files. My parents didn't scold me. They blamed the neighbor for not guarding his things. In elementary school, I put a classmate in the hospital, and they called the boy weak. When I stole a phone in middle school, they gave a false testimony just to protect me. I looked at the monsters before me and said, Mom, Dad, you'll always be my parents. My good son, Shin Ting rasped, we would never hurt you. I felt a wave of depression wash over me as I looked at our new reality. I had touched a dead snake during the mutation and gained the power of death aura. I could transform into a serpent and absorb the essence of the dead to grow stronger. It was a decent power, but I was terrified someone would find my parents and kill them. Most people were hiding in their homes right now, paralyzed by fear. The world of rules and order was officially over. Everything was broken. Only those who thought they were gods were brave enough to walk the streets. These awakened were already strutting around, taking whatever they desired. When they see a luxury home, they just walk in and take over. If they see food, they eat it. If they see a beautiful woman, they snatch her. The rules of the world are being rewritten by the law of the jungle. Stepping outside without power right now is a death sentence. If a powerful person doesn't like the way you look at them, they'll slap you dead. You have to praise their strength even while they're stepping on your neck. If they defecate on your head, you'd better compliment their digestion. If they force feed you filth and you want to live, you say thank you for the meal. The weak are hiding in corners, too terrified to move, hoping the walls will protect them. Meanwhile, in a wide hall, Zhou Chuanxiong and Lian Mei looked at their son anxiously. Dad, Mom, Qingling is gone, Zhou Tianba muttered. It had been nearly a day since she left, and the world outside was a nightmare. I should go find her, Tianba said, a feral beast aura radiating from his body. He had touched a white tiger during the mutation and gained the power to transform into one. And where exactly would you look? Lian Mei asked, her own aura flickering with power. Tianba knew she was likely at Li Qingling's classmate's house, Li Chen's place. But the distance to that garden estate was far, and the streets were crawling with danger. Before the signal cut out, Qingling told us she was fine, Zhou Chuanxiong reminded them. He wanted to believe in his daughter's strength, telling himself she wasn't a victim. But despite his calm words, Chuanxiong was trembling with fear inside. I watched the battles erupting outside the window, but my resolve didn't waver. Zhou Chuanxiong stood up and declared he was coming with me to find his daughter. He was too worried about Qingling to be talked out of it, so he made his move. Lian Mei stepped forward immediately, insisting that the whole family should go together. Chuanxiong frowned and told her to stay home and prepare a hot meal for our return. Qingling had been gone for a day, and we didn't even know if she'd eaten. Lian Mei finally relented, promising to have food ready for when we brought her back. Tianba headed to the underground garage to get the car, but found a scene of total destruction. Other awakened users had gone on a rampage, smashing every vehicle in sight. Tianba cursed, swearing to skin whoever did this, but without a car, we had to go on foot. Meanwhile, I was still with Zhou Qingling, completely lost in our Dragon Tiger boxing practice. We both had the kind of obsessive personalities that made us lose track of the world. Neither of us had any idea that her father and brother were already on their way. Chapter 16, The Clothes Are Gone. As soon as Chuanxiong and Tianba hit the streets, predatory eyes locked onto them. A massive man, over 7 feet tall with muscles like boulders, blocked their path. He was a literal human tank. The giant stared them down, standing there completely exposed without a stitch of clothing. Apparently, the world didn't make clothes big enough for a mutation like his. That big guy, I think he's looking for a fight, Tianba muttered. Zhou Chuanxiong said, his eyes glowing with a golden light. He could tell that taking a hit from this human tank would be a serious problem. A random giant like this could probably take out a grown man in one swing. Tianba took a deep breath. He looked closely and said, this guy is so big, he's clearly not human anymore. It must be related to his abilities. This is going to be tricky. While the two of them were talking, the human tank suddenly lashed out. He threw a punch, completely smashing a small car parked next to him. Watching the metal crumple made Chuanxiong and Tianba freeze. The corners of their mouths twitched in unison. Right now, everyone was just discovering their abilities for the first time. Chuanxiong and Tianba weren't entirely sure of their own strength yet. After thinking it over, Tianba said, a guy like this is a walking health hazard. He clearly loves tearing small cars apart. I bet he's the one who trashed our car in the garage. He's huge and looks like a tough fight, Dad. Let's just unleash our powers and find Qingling. Tianba's years of experience told him that if someone marks you as a target, you have to act. If they wanted to reach the Fuquan Garden today, they had to show their ferocious side. I agree, Chuanxiong replied, and both of them activated their powers at once. Tianba opened his mouth wide and let out a roar like a tiger in the deep forest. Then, a burst of white light flashed across his body as it suddenly swelled and twisted. The sound of snapping bones echoed, and within 5 breaths, Tianba transformed into a majestic white tiger. He was massive, even larger than a full-grown ox, with high-quality fur and beautiful, fierce features. When he opened his mouth, rows of sharp, spiked fangs glistened as he roared at the human tank. Beside him, Chuanxiong released his own power, standing as straight and rigid as a blade. A golden light surged from his feet to his head, instantly turning his body into a razor-sharp sword. The blade floated in midair, its tip pointed directly at the giant, as if ready to strike if he moved. Damn it, two powerhouses, the human tank cursed under his breath before turning to flee. With the threat gone, Tianba shifted back to human form, but his clothes were gone. His outfit had exploded into fragments during the transformation, leaving him covering himself and cursing. I forgot that using my ability destroys my clothes, he muttered in frustration. Chuanxiong also returned to his human form, his own clothes shredded down to a single sleeve. Chuanxiong covered himself as best he could and looked at his son. What a mess. It'll be embarrassing if Qingling sees us like this, he said, eyes filled with shame. The two of them stared at each other, unable to hide their awkwardness until Tianba spoke up. Dad, let's just reactivate our abilities for now. We'll travel as a tiger and a sword and look for some clothes along the way. They shifted back, and as they moved through the streets, other survivors scrambled to get out of their way. In this new world, life was fragile, and no one was brave enough to provoke two obvious powerhouses. They eventually found a looted mall, grabbed some spare clothes, and continued their delayed 15-minute journey. After 45 minutes, the two of them finally arrived. Tianba shifted back to human form and noted that while his power was great, the side effects were a pain. As a son, Tianba didn't care about his father seeing him like this, but Chuanxiong felt differently. The father wasn't exactly thrilled about his son seeing him exposed, so he just nodded and stayed in his sword form. Tianba transformed back into the giant white tiger, and the tiger and the blade reached the destination. They approached building number 9, but the entrance to the apartment was far too narrow for their forms. The elevator was tiny too, so they both had to return to human form and use whatever they'd scavenged. Tianba and Chuanxiong wrapped themselves in the random clothes they found around the neighborhood. They barely managed to cover their bodies, standing there barefoot in a mess of mismatched, colorful rags. I watched as Tianba scoffed. These tiny apartments can't even hold two big shots like us. Chuanxiong hesitated, worried about looking like a fool in front of Qingling's companion. Tianba just snorted and said if the guy laughed, they'd just release their power to scare the life out of him. Don't be stupid, don't go scaring Qingling's friend, Chuanxiong warned, shaking his head. He reminded his son that if the guy was a powerful user they couldn't beat, they'd be the ones embarrassed. They reached room 4399, and Tianba signaled for silence as he pressed his ear against the wooden door. He was worried since they hadn't heard from Qingling all day, wondering if something had happened to her. He cautiously listened for movement, while Chuanxiong used his consciousness to scan the room, ready for a fight. In these times, visiting someone's house wasn't about ringing a doorbell anymore. It was about scouting for danger first. Inside, Qingling and I were practicing the Dragon Tiger Fist. We were both focused and energized, but in that exact moment, our ears twitched and we stopped. Their movements stopped instantly as their bodies went tense. Qingling and I shared a sharp, knowing look. We both turned our eyes toward the hallway door. With the Genian constitution, our senses were dialed to the maximum. In this new world of chaos, uninvited guests usually meant one thing: home invaders. It was the new normal, and we weren't about to be caught off guard. I signaled her to prepare for battle and treat whoever was outside as a threat. I flashed a series of hand signals to Qingling, and she gave me a subtle nod. I crept to the door and checked the peephole, but it was completely blocked from the outside. If they were enemies, I planned to drop them instantly with a Dragon Tiger Fist. I signaled her again to get ready, and she moved into position. I stood to the side, eyes glowing, hands locked in a combat stance. Experience taught me that in this jungle, no one knocks with good intentions. Qingling ripped the door open, catching Tianba completely by surprise. Tianba stumbled back 2 steps, while Chuanxiong prepared to merge with his blade. Both sides were coiled like springs, ready to kill. But the moment the door swung fully open, everyone froze as we finally saw each other's faces. What are you trying to do, kid? You want to hit me? Tianba growled like a beast. I just blinked, playing innocent as I lowered my fist. Dad, brother, what are you doing here? Qingling cried out, her voice full of shock. She had texted them saying she was fine, but she never expected them to come looking for her. It was sudden for her, and just as sudden for me. We had both been so immersed in our cultivation that we'd completely lost track of time. Qingling, thank God you're safe, Chuanxiong said, letting out a breath of relief. Things are getting ugly outside, and your father was worried sick about you, Tianba added with a nod. The internet is down, and if you run into danger, we have no way to reach you. Qingling's heart warmed as she realized her family had risked everything to find her. Then, she looked closer and noticed her father and brother were dressed in absolute rags. She couldn't help but smile and asked, Dad, brother, why are you wearing that? You aren't even wearing shoes. Is this some kind of new post-apocalyptic trend? Seeing them like that was a total 180 from their usual image, and it was almost funny. Tianba coughed awkwardly and said, It's because of our new special abilities. Every time I transform, my clothes get shredded to pieces. I've got nothing left to wear. Then Tianba's gaze sharpened as he looked her up and down. Wait, those are that boy's clothes. Qingling, where's your original outfit? Why are you wearing his shirt? Tianba's eyes narrowed with a heavy, protective pressure that filled the hallway. He only had one daughter, and he wasn't about to let some pig ruin his prize cabbage. I stepped in and said, Uncle, brother, it's not safe to talk in the hall. Please, come inside. But Tianba brushed me off, saying, We're just here to take her home. Thanks for looking after her. The world is dangerous now, so Qingling needs to come home immediately. Besides, Mom made dinner and she's waiting for us. In this chaotic world, Tianba and Chuanxiong were keeping their guard up. They clearly didn't trust a stranger like me, which was fair enough. I didn't have anything to entertain guests with anyway, but Qingling still needed to cultivate. She needed my help, and just as I was about to speak, she beat me to it. Dad, brother, Qingshan is a good person and a great classmate. My ability is actually linked to him. Only he can help me develop it. Why don't you two head back first? I'll come home once I'm finished here. Her words made Tianba and Chuanxiong's brows furrow instantly. She was wearing my clothes. Her power depended on me, and now she wanted to stay? A bold, terrifying thought flashed through both of their minds. Was she in love? Tianba didn't hold back and got right in my face. Kid, did you pull some kind of trick to brainwash our Qingling? What's your ability? Fight me right now, and if you can't, you'd better back off. Drop whatever fantasies you have, or my fists won't show any mercy. And remember, there are no hospitals left to fix you if I break something. He brandished his massive fists, trying to look as intimidating as possible. I looked at him and felt a smirk tugging at my lips. His personality hadn't changed a bit from my previous life. The world isn't like it used to be. In times of peace, the rules are comfortable. But in times of chaos, the strongest fist wins the match. You can't afford to have the heart of a Mother Teresa anymore. Zhou Tianba has a quick mind and doesn't worry about the consequences. He's not afraid of causing future trouble, and his size is massive. Compared to him, my current physical build looks like trash. He clearly thinks I'm no match for him. But I knew there was only one way to earn Zhou Tianba's approval. My fists had to be hard enough to beat him into submission. I failed to earn his respect in my previous life. This time, I was going to take it by force. I reminded myself that Zhou Tianba had only just awakened. He hasn't mastered his new power or his control yet. My body might be weaker, but my past life combat experience is my greatest weapon. Look, you're Qingling's brother, I said calmly. If you want to test our abilities against each other, I don't mind. The moment I said that, Chuanxiong, Tianba, and Qingling all froze. They couldn't believe I was actually serious about fighting him. Qingling stared at me, wondering if I had completely lost my mind. I knew I had a massive advantage with my yin-yang physique and the dragon bone source I mastered before. With techniques like crane control and dragon capture, I had plenty of hidden cards I hadn't shown yet. Besides, men often become friends through their fists, and a quick spar shouldn't be a problem. Zhou Chuanqing watched us, noticing how close his daughter and I were becoming. He stayed silent, wanting to use this exchange to see exactly what I was made of. Zhou Tianba grinned and said, I won't take advantage of you. If you can beat me using your skills, I'll accept you. Otherwise, stay home and don't go anywhere. I was surprised he was actually trying to look out for me. It was a clear sign of the absolute confidence he had in his strength after his transformation. Not only could he turn into a giant white tiger, but his human body was now reinforced with hardened bone and steel-like tendons. He had the confidence to take down a dozen grown men, while I still looked like an underdeveloped student. To him, I looked immature and physically weak compared to his massive frame. He was certain he would win, but I wasn't about to let him off easy. If I held back now, it would only make me look bad later. I nodded and said, Thank you, please show me what you've got, as I stepped forward. Zhou Tianba told his father and sister to move back and give us space. The two of us squared off, the tension rising between us. Tianba crossed his arms behind his back with an indifferent look, clearly not taking me seriously. I dropped into a low horse stance, drawing a circle with my foot as I tightened my grip. My movements were fluid and natural, carrying a majesty that looked like something out of a high-level martial arts film. Tianba's eyes widened as he realized my style was systematic and real, and he suddenly became very interested. I decided to use the Dragon Tiger Fist, a technique that looks simple but hits like a truck. Watching me, Zhou Qingling worried that her brother might actually get hurt if I didn't hold back. I stood my ground, channeling the Dragon Tiger energy through my veins as Zhou Chuanqing watched in silence. With every breath I took, a massive, invisible pressure began to radiate from my body. I started closing the distance, moving slowly but with absolute purpose. The sheer intensity of my aura startled them, so I took a deep breath and warned them to be careful. Suddenly, the roar of a tiger and the cry of a dragon echoed through the entire room. The tiger's roar felt like a mountain collapsing, while the dragon's cry struck like a sudden thunderclap. Zhou Chuanqing completely lost his composure, his jaw dropping in pure shock at the power I was displaying. He looked terrified for his son's life, wondering if Tianba could even survive a single hit from me. Tianba panicked as the Dragon Tiger Fist closed in, his survival instincts screaming at him to move. A series of loud cracks filled the air as he desperately activated his transformation ability. His body swelled and twisted violently under a flash of white light, white fur erupting across his skin. In an instant, he became a massive white tiger, smashing the surrounding furniture into splinters as he grew. The giant beast bared its fangs and let out a roar that made the entire building tremble, shaking dust from the ceiling. I realized he'd thrown martial etiquette out the window by using his powers, but my fist didn't need to hold back anymore. I had planned to pull my punch to keep things civil, but he'd forced my hand. Now, I had no choice but to let the full force of the strike fly. Qingling and her father watched in awe as my fist, glowing with the power of the dragon and tiger, surged forward. I slammed my fist directly into the face of the screaming white tiger with everything I had. My knuckles sank deep into the white tiger's facial features. The impact was massive, leaving a visible dent in its skull. Zhou Qingling let out a worried scream, while Zhou Chuanqing jumped back in shock. The massive beast howled in agony as the dragon tiger energy surged through its entire body. I had landed a critical hit right on its forehead, the piercing pain making the tiger reel back. The white tiger trembled violently before suddenly lashing out, shoving me away with raw force. I went flying toward the living room wall, but my yin-yang constitution and past life experience kicked in. I kicked off the wall to kill the momentum, landing firmly on my feet with a cool, steady stance. The white tiger's face was a bloody mess, its pristine fur stained a deep, dark red. It let out another roar at me, making the entire apartment complex shudder once again. Dust rained from the ceiling as terrified neighbors locked their doors, too scared to even breathe. The tiger prepared to pounce and tear me apart, but Zhou Chuanqing stepped in to stop it. He shouted for Tianba to stand down, reminding him that he was crossing the line by using his abilities. Qingling rushed over too, pleading with her brother to remember this was just a sparring match. She begged him not to take the fight any further. Then she pointed out the obvious. He had completely trashed my living room. She told him he'd have to replace every single piece of furniture he broke. Hearing his family's voices, Tianba regained his senses and the violent aura of the tiger began to fade. He was still fuming. Nobody takes a punch to the face like that and stays happy. But I knew I was still too weak. I needed to reach the 6th level of my cultivation. If I could reach the 6th level of my cultivation, I'd be able to fight Zhou Tianba on equal ground. I knew I wasn't his match yet, even if my dragonbone fist was devastatingly powerful. Once that single strike was spent, I lacked the confidence to finish the fight. The battles ahead would be brutal, and right now, I was facing a literal monster. One swipe from that white tiger's claws could rip me open and leave my guts on the floor. Zhou Tianba wanted to shift back into his human form right then and there. But he realized that if he transformed now, he wouldn't have a stitch of clothing on him. He was confident in his physique, but showing off his naked body in front of his sister felt wrong. Trapped in an awkward spot, he shot a desperate, pleading look at his father. Zhou Chuanqing had been through this before and understood the look in his son's eyes immediately. He turned to me and said, "Kid, the sparring session is over. Your skills are truly impressive." Then he got straight to the point. "Qingshan, do you have any extra clothes Tianba can borrow? Every time he uses his ability, his clothes end up in shreds, and it's indecent for him to be exposed." I nodded politely and told him, "I have clothes, uncle, but they might be a bit tight on him." Zhou Chuanqing looked at my lean frame and then pictured his massive son. His mouth twitched as he replied, "Small is fine, as long as it covers his shame. Thank you, Qingshan." Zhou Qingling chimed in as well, thanking me for the help. I told them it was no trouble at all. I headed to the bedroom to grab the largest outfit I owned, though I was much thinner than Tianba. I used to be a scrawny bookworm, but with my cultivation rising, I knew I'd eventually fill these clothes out. After his mutation, Zhou Tianba had shot up to nearly 6'3". I grabbed the clothes and handed them to Zhou Chuanqing. He thanked me and laid the outfit on the only table that wasn't smashed to pieces. He told the massive beast to wait until we cleared the room before shifting back. I followed Qingling into the bedroom to give the giant some privacy. From behind the door, I heard the heavy thud of Zhou Tianba dropping his transformation. Back in human form, he stood there naked, clutching his face in agony. That dragonbone strike of mine was no joke. It carried the weight of a predator. He realized that without his beast hide, I might have actually cracked his skull open. He started squeezing into my clothes, the fabric straining against his massive frame. Every muscle and vein was outlined through the tight cloth like he was wearing a second skin. He looked at himself with a flash of annoyance, but it was better than being naked. He walked over to the window to check his reflection in the glass. His nose was swollen, red, and definitely sitting at a slightly crooked angle. I had been ruthless, and he knew it. He muttered under his breath about how I didn't hesitate for a second to draw blood. But beneath the pain, a strange sense of respect was starting to grow. He had fought plenty of people, but never a kid my age who swung with such lethal intent. Most people hesitate or hold back a little when they see an opening. But when I started swinging, I was playing for keeps. His movements were natural and smooth, like a master of his craft. He acted with total decision, even sticking the landing perfectly. After I had sent him flying, he managed to stay on his feet. He looked stable, making me wonder if Li Qingshan had been training in secret. He wasn't the weakling his classmates used to bully anymore. He didn't look like a soft target you could just push around at will. Zhou Tianba realized that there was a lot more to me than meets the eye. He couldn't wrap his head around how much I had changed. After a moment of wild speculation, he shook his head and cleared his mind. He walked over to the bedroom door and called out to us. "I'm dressed. You can come out now," he shouted. I heard the handle turn. The door swung open, and Zhou Qingling stepped out first. She took one look at him and burst out laughing at his outfit. He looked ridiculous in clothes 3 sizes too small, like a circus act. Zhou Chuanqing looked at me and asked if I had anything larger. I scratched my head, feeling a bit bad that my biggest shirt was a corset on him. "That's the biggest size I own," I admitted. "You'll have to make do." Zhou Tianba sighed. Then his eyes drifted toward his sister. He frowned when he realized she was also wearing my clothes. A mist filled her eyes, and when the topic of her special ability came up, Zhou Qingling hesitated. Zhou Chuanqing asked if it was the kind of power that made her body grow until her clothes tore. Zhou Tianba was dying of curiosity. He was a precious sword, and his mother was a precious saber. He was a giant white tiger beast, so what kind of power could Bone Jade give his sister? Zhou Qingling stuttered, looking lost, causing her father and brother to frown deeply. They were worried, sensing that something big had happened to her during the mutation. Zhou Chuanqing told her not to be afraid, promising that her family would help her solve anything. Her face twisted in conflict because her father and brother were completely misunderstanding the situation. She shot me a desperate look, silently begging me to help her out of this mess. I knew by now that Zhou Tianba and Zhou Chuanqing weren't bad people and could be trusted. I nodded and told her it was okay to speak, which shocked both men in the room. They didn't expect their daughter's secret to be so closely tied to me. Their gazes turned sharp when they realized she felt she needed my permission to talk. Once I gave her the green light, she finally spoke up about our shared secret. She explained that we had encountered a mysterious opportunity that changed her. She revealed she had the Yin-Yang Constitution, a name that sounded promising but left them confused. Suddenly, the front door was kicked with such force that the metal dented inward. A manic, crazed voice screamed from the hallway for us to shut up or die. Our eyes flashed with killing intent. We weren't weak, and we didn't fear some random thug. The intruder barked again. "You damn bastards, didn't I tell you to shut your mouths?" The voice outside screamed again, asking if we were deaf or just looking to die. A heavy thud echoed as he kicked the door again, the metal buckling under the pressure. The center of the door was torn open, leaving a jagged hole in the frame. Through the gap, we saw a tall, lanky man standing there with a bloodthirsty grin. His head looked deformed, swollen on the sides with massive, pointed ears. They looked like fox ears. Clearly, his mutation was tied to his sense of hearing. He looked at the four of us, saw we looked like normal humans, and grew even more arrogant. Zhou Tianba frowned, his temper rising as the man kept barking orders for us to shut up. The guy had overheard us training and decided he was the boss of the hallway. But kicking a hole in our door was crossing a line that couldn't be ignored. Zhou Tianba growled, "This bastard really thinks he can just break into our home." He didn't want to transform and wreck the house further, so he looked at me. In these chaotic times, a heavy fist is the only logic people understand. I stepped forward, using the snake step technique I mastered in my past life. My movement was fluid and eerily fast, like a predator sliding through the grass. Before the big-eared freak could blink, I was standing right in his face. My hands blurred in a series of rapid strikes, the air whistling like a screaming crane. I was utilizing the core cultivation methods of the 4th and 6th chi refining layers. It was the crane control and dragon capture style, designed to redirect massive force with ease. With my current cultivation, I could now seize targets out of thin air with invisible pressure. I pushed this technique to its absolute limit to achieve total control. The power to control cranes and capture dragons was now in my hands. This mutant didn't stand a chance against a refined technique like this. The big-eared freak froze for a second, stunned by my speed. He didn't expect an ordinary-looking guy like me to strike so ruthlessly. I grabbed his massive ears and yanked, forcing a blood-curdling scream from his throat. With a violent heave, I threw him headfirst into our living room. He landed flat on his face right at Zhou Tianba's feet. Zhou Tianba didn't hesitate. He slammed his foot onto the guy's spine to pin him down. In this house, none of us were pushovers. I had survived the global mutation once before, so my heart was the coldest of all. The Zhou family followed my lead, showing zero sympathy for this intruder. We knew that if we were the weak ones, we'd be the ones treated like cattle. Zhou Tianba looked at me, his eyes gleaming with newfound respect. He hadn't expected me to be this powerful, but I kept exceeding his expectations. In my past life, I had reached the foundation establishment stage and mastered the world. These techniques might be common in the cultivation world, but here, they were god tier. On this blue planet, my skills were like a strike from a higher dimension. Zhou Qinglin watched me, her eyes sparkling with shock and admiration. Zhou Chuanxiong couldn't help but mutter, "Kid, your power is incredible." I touched the bridge of my nose, keeping my expression humble despite the praise. Then, I shifted gears and walked over toward Zhou Tianlin. The big-eared mutant was still on the floor, struggling weakly and making hollow, guttural noises. Zhou Tianlin looked down at him and sneered. "You hate it when we're noisy, don't you?" The freak just kept squirming, unable to even form a coherent response. Zhou Tianlin turned to me and asked, "Qingshan, you got any music downloaded on your phone?" I understood exactly what he was planning the second he asked. "I've got just the thing," I replied, pulling out my device and scrolling for the loudest track I had. I handed it over, and Zhou Tianlin grinned. "You're a sharp kid, Qingshan. You catch on fast." He cranked the volume to the absolute max and shoved the speaker right against the mutant's massive ear. The living room exploded with a deafening, screeching wall of sound. For a mutant with hypersensitive hearing, this was pure, unadulterated torture. It felt like thousands of jagged needles were stabbing directly into his brain. "Stop! Make it stop!" the big-eared freak screamed, thrashing with desperate energy. But Zhou Tianlin kept his foot planted firmly on the guy's back, forcing him to endure every note. When the song finally ended, Zhou Tianlin turned it off and asked, "Still think we're too loud? I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you." The freak hissed, his eyes bloodshot and wild. I knelt down and delivered a stinging slap across his face that echoed through the room. "You kicked my door down," I said coldly, "and we haven't even settled that debt yet." I hit him again, set the music to loop, and let the sonic torture begin all over again. The big-eared freak shook his head violently and stammered, "It's not loud, I swear." Zhou Tianlin finally cut the music, looked at him, and said, "Fine, get out of here." He lifted his foot, and the freak scrambled up, cursing us as monsters in his head. He never expected to run headfirst into a steel wall like us today. In this dying world, he knew he was lucky just to be walking away with his life. He forced a pathetic smile and said, "It wasn't loud at all, thanks for the gift," before scurrying out. He even pulled the broken door shut behind him as he fled the apartment. Zhou Tianlin watched him go and spat, "Cowards. They only act tough until they meet a real fist." I nodded slightly. That's just how the world works now. Zhou Chuanxiong cleared his throat and looked at my sister. "Qingling, what was that yin-yang constitution you mentioned?" Zhou Tianba leaned in too, his eyes burning with curiosity about his sister's new power. Zhou Qingling looked at me and said, "Qingshan, you explain it to them." Her tone left no room for argument, so I rubbed my nose and gathered my thoughts. I looked at Uncle Zhou and Tianba and said, "All right, I'll tell you about her ability." They both settled in, looking at me like I was already part of the family. Tianba nodded. "Go ahead, Qingshan. I want to hear what you figured out." I didn't start talking right away. Instead, I got up and checked all the locks. I closed every window and drew the curtains, making sure no one was eavesdropping. They watched me with puzzled expressions, wondering why I was being so cautious. Once the room was secure, I sat back down and finally broke the silence. When the global awakening hit, a voice echoed in my mind. It was a mysterious, ancient voice from a higher plane. It spoke directly to me, revealing a hidden truth. It said that a specific union between a man and a woman could unlock something unique. The yin-yang constitution, and once that power is obtained, everything changes. It allows us to master divine techniques like the Eye of Insight and the Dragon Bone Origin. Powers like the dragon's breath that swallows rivers and the ability to lift massive weights with ease. Techniques like the Absolute Phoenix, Absolute Water, and making light objects feel heavy. Absolute Wind, and more, turning us into true immortal cultivators. The voice also warned me that in 6 months, our blue star will collide with another world. A continent filled with endless opportunities and danger. In that place, every single person has the potential to cultivate. But those with the yin-yang constitution will grow at an explosive rate. They'll be snatched up by the top sects as core disciples, and I'll be guided into a mysterious sect myself. Qingling always looked out for me at school, so I called her to share this destiny. Right now, she's following my lead to master the Dragon Bone Origin and has already awakened her spiritual sense. I laid it all out with total honesty, watching Uncle Zhou and Tianba process the story. Their bodies went stiff, their faces frozen in pure shock. The sheer amount of information I just dropped on them was overwhelming. While the rest of the world is just touching objects for scraps of power, we are already cultivating. While everyone else is hunting for treasures to touch, I don't need objects. I touch people. Specifically, I touched Zhou Qingling, Tianba's sister, and Uncle Zhou's precious daughter. Tianba's face turned bright red as he growled. "Li Qingshan, you touched my sister?" Uncle Zhou looked like he'd seen a ghost, but I knew my explanation was still too simple. I looked them in the eye and said, "I touched her, and she touched me back. It was mutual." Tianba roared. "Did you even ask for my permission?" before swinging a massive iron fist at me. I moved like a serpent, sliding backward to dodge those sandbag-sized fists of his. Suddenly, Uncle Zhou unleashed a blade of spiritual energy that seemed to warp the very air around us. I backed away carefully, realizing that touching Qingling had turned this father and son into my worst enemies. "Dad, brother, stop it!" Qingling screamed, rushing to stand directly in front of me. She spread her arms wide, shielding me from their wrath with her own body. Watching her protect me like that made my heart ache with a mix of pride and embarrassment. I've always believed that a man should never hide behind a woman while he's under his own roof. No matter what happens, it's my job to be the shield and protect the girls in my life. The only time a man should be behind a woman is in the bedroom, not in a fight. Qingling stood her ground and told them, "This is my choice, my destiny." I could have said no. I stepped forward and added that I could help them both start their own cultivation journeys too. "I can open your acupoints so you can absorb the world's energy," I promised. "We can all grow strong together." I spoke with total sincerity, my eyes reflecting the raw emotion I felt in that moment. After a lifetime of being alone, I truly envied the bond this family shared and wanted to be part of it. Now that I've been reborn into this life, I realized I finally have a chance to belong to a real family. Tianba frowned at me and asked, "Qingshan, what's the catch?" In this world, everyone knows there's no such thing as a free lunch. Uncle Zhou narrowed his eyes and asked, "What do you want from us?" I shook my head and told them I had no hidden agenda. I just wanted to repay Qingling for the way she looked after me before. I fell silent, and I could tell Qingling saw the loneliness in my eyes. Dad, brother, she said softly. I trust Qingshan's character. Tianba stared me down, his arms crossed over his massive chest. You saw my sister's body, and you touched her. You don't get to walk away that easily. I frowned and asked him what he expected me to do then. You're coming home with us, he declared. You have to take responsibility for her. I was stunned. I didn't expect him to basically demand I join the family. Qingling's face turned bright red as she stammered. Brother, what are you talking about? We're just classmates. There's no romance, or whatever you're thinking. Tianba ignored her, convinced that since we'd shared power, our fates were linked. In his mind, as long as I wasn't a scumbag, I was the only choice for her. Was my sister playing dumb, or was I the one who was confused? Tianba didn't say another word, but his silence spoke volumes. Uncle Zhou stepped in from the side to smooth things over. Qingshan, you don't have a family, and this place is far too dangerous now. In this chaotic world, we have a better chance of survival if we stick together. I knew Qingling's family was tight-knit and full of love, exactly what I needed. I nodded and said, thank you for taking me in, Uncle. I'd be honored to go home with you. In these early days of the apocalypse, my cultivation was still weak. With their protection, I could grow steadily while using my future knowledge to make us all stronger. It was the best way to guard against other hostile mutants. Uncle Zhou smiled kindly and told me they had plenty of extra rooms. Tianba grunted, fine, but stay away from my sister or my fists won't have eyes. I promised him I'd be on my best behavior, which made Qingling beam with joy. I warned them that the yin-yang art was a slow burn and might take a month to master. In my past life, people with yin-yang constitutions were considered weaklings on Earth, but once they reached the higher cultivation realms, they became absolute monsters. They rose to the top of the food chain almost overnight. Their growth speed was unmatched once they mastered those peerless martial arts. Uncle Zhou asked how long it took Qingling to learn, and I told him just one day. I explained that the technique would gradually flush the impurities out of their meridians. I stood there like a grandmaster, answering their questions as they listened intently. Tianba looked at me and asked, can you teach us once we get back? Of course, I replied. I replied with a faint smile, knowing the yin-yang art was basic back in the cultivation world. Every cultivator needs a foundation to start their practice. Blue Star hadn't collided with that higher plane of existence yet. Because of that, this technique seemed incredibly precious, even if the world's spiritual energy was thin. Luckily, almost no humans here knew how to cultivate properly. No one was competing for the natural spirit energy, so I could grow in peace. After we finished talking, I started packing my clothes and essentials. Pack light, Tianba warned. We don't have a car waiting for us. We have to walk back, and it's about an hour on foot. I nodded and kept my luggage to a minimum, mostly just clothes and toiletries. I made sure to grab my father's old things, photos, his phone, ID, and some notes. I pulled out 2 large suitcases, and Tianba scratched his head, looking skeptical. It's fine, I said. Most of this belongs to my father. I didn't feel the need to explain any further. Tianba just nodded and said, got it. I pushed the 2 heavy suitcases toward the door as we prepared to leave. With my yin-yang tyrant body and open meridians, I moved the heavy luggage with ease. The elevator was trashed by other mutants, so we had to take the stairs. Qingling offered to help, but Tianba stepped in immediately to take the heavy lifting. My apartment was on the 4th floor, not a long trek down, but the world outside was different now. The 4 of us quickly hauled the suitcases down and reached the main gate of the complex. 3 ability users were already there, blocking the path with I am king expressions on their faces. Next to them sat a pile of looted supplies, food, and a young girl tied hand and foot. She looked about 10 years old, her hair a mess and her eyes drowning in tears as she struggled. The leader was a burly man with thick blue fur covering his upper body. He looked at us arrogantly, his aggressive gaze lingering on Qingling. Leave the luggage and the woman, then you can go, he barked. In this chaotic new world, women had become just another resource for these thugs to hoard. If you don't want to die, drop everything, a tall, thin man added. His hands were grotesque. His palms had been replaced by 2 razor-sharp kitchen knives. The steel blades were fused directly into his flesh, gleaming with a cold, murderous light. If we actually fight, you don't stand a chance of winning, he sneered. The 3rd man was even larger, his skin turning a pitch black, stone-like color as he spoke. He looked like a walking boulder, radiating a heavy, terrifying pressure. Tianba looked surprised. We hadn't seen these 3 when we first arrived. They must have set up their little toll booth while we were upstairs packing. Tianba's face darkened with rage the moment they demanded we hand over his sister. That was the one line they should have never crossed. Qingling clenched her fists, her cold, beautiful face flushing with pure anger. You actually think you can treat women like objects? She snapped. These guys were truly crossing the line. I glanced at the little girl tied up on the ground with a surge of sympathy. She was kicking and struggling, but without a rescue, she was finished. If she fell into their hands, her future would be a living nightmare. Zhou Chuanxing saw that these opponents weren't going to be easy to handle. He looked at the 3 younger ones behind him, terrified of an accident. He leaned in and whispered, what if we just back off for now? We can circle around and jump the perimeter wall to escape. We're all mutants now. Clearing a wall should be easy. In this chaotic world, the hospital system had already collapsed. If you got injured or infected now, things would only get worse. A serious wound was basically a slow death sentence. Zhou Chuancheng was an honest man who knew the secret to a long life. Mind your own business. The girl was a tragedy and the mutants were evil, but his own life came first. He believed being a saint in this world would only lead to an early grave. Tianba frowned after hearing this, his expression turning thoughtful. Even though he could transform into a giant white tiger, he was naturally cautious. Hearing his father's plan to retreat, Tianba actually started to hesitate. It looked like the father and son were really preparing to back down. The corner of my mouth twitched as I thought, these two have no idea how strong I really am. They've already been insulted, yet they're still hiding like turtles in a shell. I didn't agree with Zhou Chuancheng and Tianba's cowardly approach at all. Those three mutants already have their eyes on our luggage and Zhou Qingling. If we retreat now, they won't let us go, they'll hunt us down like prey. I looked at them and said, backing down is a mistake, Uncle Tianba. To them, I'm just a kid who hasn't even finished his exams yet. That's why they didn't bother asking for my opinion during their little debate. But I had plenty of ideas, starting with that massive pile of supplies over there. If we kill these three and take their loot, we'll be set for a long time. As for the girl, we save her and send her home. Call it our good deed for the day. My gaze turned fierce as I stared at the mountain of resources behind the thugs. In this collapsing world, factories have stopped and money is just useless paper. Zhou Chuancheng and his son froze, a look of pure shock flashing in their eyes. They never expected me to say something so bold, let alone target the enemy's stash. I didn't look like a student anymore. I looked like a cold-blooded predator. Zhou Qingling was stunned, never realizing I had this kind of bloodlust in me. She smiled, her eyes brightening as she realized I was right about the supplies. She couldn't stand how these thugs treated women like objects, and she wanted blood too. Tianba's fists cracked loudly as he growled, if we don't crush these bastards, I'll regret it forever. The blue-haired leader barked at us. What are you whispering about? Leave the girl and the bags or die. He screamed in a blind rage, his face twisting with fury. His head suddenly morphed into a ferocious wolf, his eyes glowing with a scarlet killing intent. He laughed and said I should be thanked for bringing them more supplies. Beside him, another mutant's hands transformed into jagged kitchen knives. The werewolf's body swelled, his blue tattoos sprouting thick, wild fur as he became a massive cyan beast. The giant cyan wolf let out a bone-chilling howl and lunged forward on all fours. He took the initiative to strike first, aiming to tear me and the others apart. Zhou Tianba cursed under his breath and stepped in front of Zhou Qingling and me. As the eldest son, he wasn't about to let his sister or his best friend get hurt. A fierce tiger's roar shook the sky as Tianba dropped into a predatory stance. His muscles expanded and white fur erupted from his skin, shredding his clothes to pieces. In an instant, a formidable giant white tiger stood before us, roaring to intimidate the enemy. He kicked off with his hind legs and pounced directly onto the blue wolf. In terms of pure size, Tianba's white tiger form was a whole level larger and more terrifying. The mutant with the knife hands froze in absolute terror. He never imagined he'd be facing a giant white tiger in a back-alley fight. I wondered what kind of luck Tianba had to touch a tiger during the global mutation. Your opponent is me, a sharp, vigorous voice rang out. Zhou Chuancheng stepped forward, his body beginning to glow with a cold, metallic light. Within 3 breaths, he transformed into a massive, shimmering arrow suspended in midair. Without anyone there to control it, the arrow lunged forward and viciously impaled the mutant with the kitchen knife hands. The knife mutant panicked, having never seen an ability that could transform a man into a projectile. He realized too late that he had picked a fight with the wrong people. Nearby, a massive, obese mutant with ink-black skin slammed his iron fists together. He roared that he was the toughest one there and challenged us to try and break him. I placed a hand on Zhou Qingling's shoulder and pulled her back before she could charge. I told her to stay put while I went to deal with the iron-skinned freak myself. She hesitated, suppressing her urge to fight, realizing she might not be strong enough yet. She stayed back and watched as her gaze fell upon the captive, haggard girl. The girl was trembling, terrified of being caught in the crossfire of the brutal transformation battle. Qingling decided to find an opening to sneak over and cut the girl's ropes. The 4 of us, Qingling, Chuancheng, Tianba, and I, each had our own role to play now. The clash between the giant cyan wolf and the white tiger was pure carnage. The cyan wolf lunged with its claws bared and eyes wide with malice. It slashed across the white tiger's flank, leaving a long, jagged gash in its side. Blood sprayed everywhere, staining Tianba's pristine white for a deep, visceral red. But Tianba didn't flinch. He lunged and sank his teeth deep into the wolf's throat. The cyan wolf let out a high-pitched, agonizing shriek as blood erupted from its neck. The scent of iron triggered Tianba's predatory instincts, making him clamp down even harder. A primal hunger for blood surged within Tianba, followed immediately by a paralyzing fear of killing. These conflicting instincts warred inside the young tiger's mind. He was terrified, yet for some reason, he couldn't bring himself to let go. He didn't dare release his jaw. Instead, he clamped down harder for 20 long breaths. The giant cyan wolf finally stopped struggling and collapsed into a growing pool of blood. Tianba stopped tearing at the flesh, staring blankly at the beast he had instinctively devoured. The metallic stench of the wolf's blood made him nauseous, but the beast didn't revert to human form. Suddenly, a piercing scream erupted from the mutant with the kitchen knife hands. He stared in agony at his wrists, where his blade hands had been cleanly severed. The metal knives hit the floor with a heavy clang as he wailed about his lost future. I shifted my focus, mobilizing my energy to close the distance. The obese mutant was usually slow, but panic was making him move with surprising speed. I lunged at the iron-skinned freak like a cheetah, catching him off guard. Seeing his two comrades already down, the brute's confidence shattered into pure terror. Driven by a desperate survival instinct, he turned to flee, but I cut him off with a snake step. Chapter 20. I grabbed the fat mutant's massive frame, hooked his leg, and slammed him face first into the dirt. This iron-skinned mutant, Allison, felt no pain, but my blade was already coming for his arm. Metal sparked against metal as I hacked his arm clean off, sending a spray of blood into the air. Now a one-armed wreck with no allies left, the Tin Man collapsed, clutching his stump in the dirt. I heard his wails and saw he'd lost the will to fight, so I held back my next strike. Beside me, Zhou Chuanqing stopped as well, his respect for life outweighing his killer instinct. Even in these chaotic times, he couldn't bring himself to execute a defeated mutant. Seeing the crisis was over, he recalled his jet arrows and began scanning the distance for fresh prey. Nearby, Tianba had already processed the shock of his first kill and slunk off to hunt. The only sound left in the street was the agonizing screams of the two surviving mutants. From behind closed windows, the neighbors watched us in a heavy, terrified silence. I looked down at the iron-skinned mutant, Allison, and felt a flicker of disappointment. I had hacked his arm off before he could even speak, which was a bit of a waste. Without his extra pair of hands, how was I supposed to carry all these supplies home? I rubbed my brow, thinking hard about our logistics problem. I'd have to find a car soon if I wanted to move this entire haul in one trip. I turned my gaze toward the mountain of goods stacked nearby. It was a gold mine: rice, flour, seasonings, frozen meat, and even baby supplies. In the old world, this pile would have cost maybe 2,000 yuan. That might buy you a few skins in a video game, but here, it was a fortune. It was enough to fill an entire car and keep us fed for a long time. My eyes shifted to Zhou Qinglin, who was currently comforting a young girl. I couldn't help but wonder, what kind of special ability did this girl possess? She looked only 2 or 3 years younger than me, but her potential was a mystery. The girl was sobbing softly in Zhou Qinglin's arms. It was clear that her heart had been through a lot today. She had suffered considerable trauma. I walked over and asked softly, "Are you okay?" Zhou Qinglin replied, "She's a bit scared, but she'll be fine." After comforting her for a while, Zhou Qinglin told her to head home quickly. The girl paused to express her gratitude to me and Zhou Qinglin. Before leaving, she told us her name and her ability. Her name was Jiang Xiaoan, and the last thing she touched was a teddy bear. Her power allowed her to transform her body into a giant, living plush toy. She could turn into a massive teddy bear that could move around. But she had absolutely no combat power whatsoever. She had only come down to the complex to visit a classmate, but these 3 mutants snatched her. They had even talked about eating human meat and said things no child should hear. After Jiang Xiaoan left, Zhou Qinglin looked at the 2 survivors with pure rage. They weren't just stealing supplies, they were kidnapping women and children. Having your limbs shattered is exactly what you deserve, Zhou Qinglin cursed under her breath. The iron-skinned mutant let out a ragged, broken gasp. "I don't even have hands anymore, just kill me," he begged. Hearing his plea for a quick death, Zhou Qinglin froze for a moment. This guy didn't value his life and just wanted to die, but thinking about it, it made sense. He had no hands, which made him a cripple, and in these chaotic times, that's a death sentence. Zhou Qinglin frowned and cursed. "I don't want to get my hands dirty, so just get lost." "Go to hell, you bitch," the kitchen knife mutant roared, lunging his body toward her. I reached out, grabbed Zhou Qinglin, and pulled her safely behind me. Then I lashed out with a heavy kick, slamming the mutant back into the dirt. "If I tell you to leave, you leave right now, or I'll break your legs too," I growled. "If you stay, don't dream of a quick death. I'll feed you your own severed hands until you choke." My words struck his inner weakness, and a sudden, primal fear washed over his face. He wanted the pain to end, but the image of the torture I described was far worse. The kitchen knife mutant scrambled up and fled in total humiliation. I turned to the iron-skinned mutant. "You two, get out, or I'll kill your friend and torture you next." He felt my killing intent, scooped up his severed arm, and limped away into the shadows. The area was a bloody, chaotic mess, and Zhou Qinglin began to tremble. She had only seen such carnage on TV. Experiencing it in person made her stomach churn. Just as she was about to vomit, I stepped up and covered her eyes with my hands. "Don't look at this filth," I whispered. "Focus on your chi and your cultivation." I was a veteran of this blood-soaked world, but she still needed time to adjust to the horror. Chapter 267, A Harsh Lesson. Zhou Qinglin listened to my voice and took a deep breath. "I understand, Li Qingshan, thank you," she murmured, finally calming her mind. Zhou Qinglin's breathing finally began to stabilize. Her skin felt incredibly soft, full of collagen and warmth beneath my fingertips. It was like touching a warm cloud, and a faint, maidenly fragrance drifted from her. It was the kind of scent that could make a man lose his focus if he wasn't careful. I turned my head toward the blue-furred giant wolf lying dead in the dirt. Zhou Tianba hadn't held back. He ended that mutant's life with a single, crushing bite. But taking a life is a heavy burden, and I wondered how he was handling it internally. Zhou Tianba and Zhou Chuanqing had vanished for a moment, likely searching for clothes. Standing naked in front of Zhou Qinglin was hardly appropriate, even in this chaos. When they finally emerged from a nearby house, their outfits were beyond ridiculous. Zhou Tianba was wrapped in a bath towel reinforced with strips of black plastic trash bags. Zhou Chuanqing had found an old quilt and hacked it into pieces with his sword to cover himself. "Uncle, Brother Tianba, your new style is definitely unique," I said, stifling a laugh. Zhou Tianba's expression remained solemn, still haunted by the wolf he had just slaughtered. "It covers the essentials," Zhou Chuanqing muttered. "Better than being naked, I suppose." Tianba looked around the empty clearing. "Where are the other two? Did they escape?" "I told them to get lost," I replied calmly. "They're crippled and useless now anyway." "Aren't you afraid they'll hold a grudge and come back for revenge?" Tianba asked. I shook my head. "They don't have the strength to even dream of it." Tianba went silent, knowing he didn't have the stomach to finish them off himself yet. I thought to myself that this was actually a good thing. Human nature is inherently good. No one is born a killer. Hearing the commotion outside, Zhou Qinglin finally snapped out of her cultivation state. She took one look at her father and brother and burst into a smile. "Big brother, Dad, your clothes look absolutely ridiculous," she giggled. Zhou Tianba scratched his head, looking desperate to change out of his makeshift rags. He was clearly trying to distract himself from the fact that he'd just taken a life. Dried blood still stained his skin, giving off a faint, metallic stench of death. "What do we do with all these supplies?" Zhou Chuanqing asked, gesturing to the pile. Tianba sighed. "There's too much. We can't possibly carry it all ourselves." He suggested leaving it for others, but I wasn't about to let that happen. In these dark times, resources are life. Giving them away is a luxury we can't afford. I shook my head and told them, "No, we're taking everything. We need to stockpile for the future. You never know when the world will stop providing." Zhou Tianba frowned. "I agree, Qing Shan, but how? We don't have a truck." Just as we were debating our options, a man with strangely large ears approached us. "I have a car," the stranger said with a greasy, confident smile. "I can help you move it." I recognized him immediately. He was the same pest who tried to cause trouble at my house before. "I'll get it home for you," he continued, his ears twitching greedily. "But I want a cut of the loot." Tianba glared at him. "You've been eavesdropping on us this whole time, haven't you?" The big-eared man shrugged and said, "It's not my fault you guys were being so loud just now. With voices like yours, it's pretty hard for me not to listen in," he added. He pointed toward his oversized, twisted ears and kept talking. "This is just how humanity is evolving now. My ability gives me super hearing so I can catch everything happening around me." Hearing this, Zhou Tianba finally understood how this creep knew our business. "You clearly haven't learned your lesson yet," Tianba growled, stepping toward him. Tianba pointed at the mangled corpse of the green-furred giant wolf lying nearby. The big-eared mutant followed his gaze, his body trembling as his cocky expression vanished. Looking at that shredded beast, a wave of pure terror washed over him. "Wait, I just want some supplies," he stammered. "I'll drive you, and you just give me some food. I have nothing at home. If I don't eat soon, I'm going to starve." Tianba let out a cold laugh and grabbed the man by his massive ear. "Are you deaf? Here's how it's going to work. You and I are going to get that car right now. Then I'm driving my family and these supplies home, and you're staying here. I'll give you a bottle of Coke and a pack of noodles, but if you try anything, I'll end you." The big-eared mutant froze, paralyzed by the sheer bloodlust in Tianba's voice. He thought he was coming out here to cut a deal, but now he was losing his only asset. "This is robbery," he squeaked. "I haven't even made you pay for breaking Qingshan's door yet." Tianba yanked his ear harder. "Consider the car payment for the door. Do we have a deal?" "I get it. Now move fast, and take me to the car," Zhou Tianba growled. Yes, I'll take you right now," the big-eared mutant whimpered, clutching his throbbing ear. He led Tianba to a deserted corner of the neighborhood and pulled out a set of keys. He handed them over and said, "This is my BMW. Take it, but please, treat it well." Tianba looked at the beat-up van and scoffed at the guy calling it a BMW. "Fine, I'm taking the keys. I'll leave your noodles and Coke at the neighborhood entrance." Tianba snatched the keys, hopped in, and jammed them into the ignition. The engine roared to life, and he drove the van toward the main gate, leaving the mutant behind. As soon as Tianba was out of sight, the mutant's innocent act vanished, replaced by a venomous glare. "Damn you, I was supposed to find out where you live and then bring someone to raid your house. Now my plan is ruined. If you ever cross my path again, I'll make you pay double." He had planned to play the helpful driver just to mark the location of our home. He wanted to sell that information to a more powerful master so they could wipe us out. But he didn't expect Tianba to be so dominant, leaving him stranded and stealing his ride. Tianba pulled the van up to the entrance where we were waiting. It was old and battered, but it was spacious enough to hold all our supplies. "Old man, father, Qingshan, look at the ride I just scored from that big-eared freak. Sister, come help me load this up," Tianba shouted with a grin. "Oh, that man must have a very kind heart to lend us this," Zhou Qinglin said. She gave a small, innocent smile. If only she knew. "Now, let's get this food loaded up quickly. We need to get this to the car and head home," I said firmly. Move out, Zhou Tianba shouted, his voice echoing through the street. The adrenaline from the fight was still coursing through our veins. But we pushed those chaotic emotions down and focused on survival. The thrill of breaking the enemy's defense and crushing them. Those are feelings meant for the quiet of the night. When a soft breeze blows and you have a bowl of wine in your hand, that's the right time to remember the battle and let the emotions flow. But for now, we had work to do. Zhou Qingling, Zhou Tianba, Old Man Zhou, and I, the four of us immediately got to work. We began hauling the supplies into the back of the van. The other mutants in the neighborhood watched us from a distance, too terrified to step closer after seeing us in action. In record time, every last crate and bag was loaded into the vehicle. Tianba pulled out a bag of noodles and a bottle of Coke and tossed them toward the gate. For humanity's sake, I'm leaving these for the big-eared freak, he chuckled. The rest of us couldn't help but smirk as Tianba climbed into the driver's seat and said, "All right, let's go." Qingling and Old Man Zhou hopped into the back, ready to leave this place behind. But I didn't get in yet. My eyes were locked on the blue-furred giant wolf lying dead nearby. Even after death, it hadn't reverted to its human form. Looking at it, memories of my past life in the cultivation continent flooded back. A blue-furred giant wolf like this, back in the cultivation world, it would be a prime hunting target. The skin, bones, and organs could all be harvested and sold for a fortune. But more importantly, there was a chance it held an inner core or even spirit bones. Spirit bones come in 7 types: head, torso, and the 4 limbs. The fur on this beast was dull, so I wasn't sure if it would drop a core, let alone a spirit bone. The urge to cut open the carcass grew stronger. In my past life, I was a rogue cultivator who followed beast hunting teams. I made my living harvesting materials, cores, and spirit bones from these monsters. Materials brought in cash, but consuming inner cores actually boosted your cultivation level. They were essential for reaching the golden elixir stage. As for spirit bones, you could fuse them with your own skeleton. They replaced human bone, making the body indestructible. Suddenly, Zhou Tianba's heavy hand landed on my shoulder. "Qingshan, come on, let's get out of here." I looked at the blue wolf one last time and said, "Brother Tianba, wait a second. I have something to do." Tianba looked surprised. "What are you talking about?" "I have a feeling there's something inside this wolf's body. I need to open it up and check," I said firmly. Tianba's eyes widened. "Are you crazy? Qingshan, this thing used to be human. All you're going to find is blood and guts. It's disgusting." In the car, Qingling and Old Man Zhou stayed silent, frowning. They didn't expect such a bizarre request. Cutting open the wolf would be a bloody, gruesome process. They couldn't understand why I'd want to do it. Qingling watched me, thinking, Qingshan must have a reason, but this is too much. It's too violent. I don't think my father or brother can handle watching this. "Just get in the car and stop talking nonsense," Tianba urged. I realized then that to them, my ideas were terrifying. After all, it was only day 2. Most people still couldn't stomach it. They weren't ready for the cruelty of this new world. I looked at them and said, "Brother Tianba, Qingling, uncle, you might find this hard to accept, but I have my reasons for doing this. There were too many eyes on us right now, too many people whispering. I'll explain everything when we get home, but this wolf's pelt, its core, and its bones, they are rare treasures. In the early stages of a chaotic world, every scrap of resource is the difference between life and death." I stood my ground, insisting on carving open the giant beast to find what was hidden inside. Qingling broke the silence first and said, "I trust Qingshan. Let's just listen to him." Old Man Zhou knew I had stumbled upon some kind of mysterious opportunity that others couldn't grasp. He nodded and said, "We'll do as Qingshan says." Even Tianba finally grunted in agreement. "Qingshan, do you need a hand with that?" I simply shook my head. "No, I can handle this myself." I had spent a lifetime perfecting the art of harvesting beast materials. No ordinary butcher could match my skill. I went to the truck and grabbed a few tools from our supply haul. I found some kitchen knives and a long watermelon blade that would serve me just fine. I walked back to the blue-furred corpse and crouched down while the Zhou family watched me with bated breath. They wondered how a high school student could possibly know how to dismantle a monster like this. Tianba still had his doubts, remembering me only as the weak, quiet kid who got bullied by Sun Jinhai's gang. In his mind, if I were truly strong, I never would have let those thugs push me around. Li Qingshan has always had talent, and that's what has helped me keep going. He's different than before, Zhou Qingling thought to herself. She watched me with curiosity, wondering what other surprises I had in store. Up in the high-rises, residents crowded the windows to watch my every move. What is he doing with that knife? It looks like he's going to cut that monster open. How cruel. Kids, don't look, it's too bloody. Just thinking about it scares me to death. He looks so young, yet he's doing something so insane, the neighbors whispered. I didn't hesitate. I swung the blade with firm determination. With a clean slice, I peeled back the blue fur and set the heavy pelt aside. The gore was too much for the crowd, and even Qingling had to look away. That's a nice pelt. It'd be worth a fortune as a coat, Tianba joked nervously. But the reality was sinking in. This beast used to be a human with powers. Tianba felt a flicker of fear, but seeing me work so calmly made that fear vanish. I ignored them all and used the watermelon blade to slice into the wolf's stomach. I carved through the muscle of the blue-furred beast with surgical precision. The stench of the internal organs hit the air like a physical wall. The spectators recoiled in horror, unable to stomach the bloody display. I worked for 15 minutes, sweat pouring down my face as I dug deeper. Finally, my blade hit something hard and circular, exactly what I was looking for. I didn't expect this beast to have condensed an inner core so early. I reached deep inside and felt it, a giant wolf's inner core, no bigger than a fingernail. It was small, but even a tiny scrap of meat is still a meal. I pulled it out and quietly pressed the core into the slot on my finger. I moved quickly. I didn't want the others to see what I'd found. I kept searching through the blue-furred beast's remains, hoping for more. I checked every inch of the carcass, but I couldn't find a spirit bone anywhere. Not a single one. I felt a flicker of disappointment, but it was exactly what I had expected. Getting an inner core this early was already a win, so I shook off the feeling and composed myself. I grabbed a handful of dirt to scrub the blood off my arms and mask the heavy scent of gore. I slung the blue pelt over my shoulder and headed back to the van. Is it handled? Tianba asked, a trace of awe visible on his face. He had watched me dissect that beast with the surgical skill of a master butcher. It's done, I replied. Let's move out, before taking a seat in the back away from the others. I didn't want to gross them out, but Qingling didn't seem to care and sat right next to me. She pulled out some cotton to help me clean the rest of the grime off my skin. Zhou Chuanqing sat in the passenger seat, looking like a father who realized he was a third wheel. Hold on tight, Tianba shouted as he floored the accelerator and the van roared to life. It's a good thing the world has gone to hell, Qingling joked while she worked. In the old world, they would have thrown you in prison for being this cold-blooded. You aren't afraid at all, you just charge right at those things. Zhou Chuanqing leaned in, his eyes burning with curiosity. Qingshan, you were back there for a while. You found more than just that pelt, didn't you? Qingling looked at me, her face full of wonder, waiting for an answer. I knew these three were reliable, so I decided it was time to share the secret. I turned my left hand over, revealing the golden inner core resting in my palm. The faint, wild aura of the blue-furred wolf radiated from the tiny stone. Tianba was focused on the road, but Qingling and her father stared at my hand in shock. You actually pulled that out of the wolf's stomach? Qingling gasped. Tianba tried to crane his neck to see, nearly swerving the van in the process. Zhou Chuanqing shoved Tianba's head back toward the windshield and scolded him. Eyes on the road. Do you want to kill us all? Tianba pouted and gripped the wheel, finally driving in a straight line. I held up the core and began my explanation. When beasts mutate, there's a small chance they'll form one of these inner cores. Consuming it drastically speeds up a cultivator's progress. It's the foundation for reaching the golden core stage later on. Qingling nodded, remembering what I'd told her before, but the men looked lost. Cultivation? Golden cores? I don't understand a word of this, Zhou Chuanqing admitted. Qingshan, you need to explain this entire system to us properly. Everyone has the potential to cultivate, but those born with the yin-yang constitution have a massive advantage. Their path is smoother and much faster than anyone else's. It's better for the Zhou father and son to start their journey now. Starting early is better than waiting for the world to descend into total chaos. I didn't want to wait until we reached the main continent to begin their training. I decided not to hide anything from them. Uncle, Brother Tianba, I'm going to explain the system to you clearly. But this is a massive secret. You must never tell a soul. If anyone asks, just say it's a unique special ability. If we catch the eye of the great families or powerful factions, we're dead. I knew that if we were exposed, none of us would survive. In my memory, there are two types of power players in this city. The ancient, established families that have ruled for a century, and the new, brutal forces that rose during these turbulent times. These factions are the apex predators of the city. They hunt down and recruit powerful practitioners to serve as their personal tools. And that's just the situation in this one single city. Across the Dragon Nation, there are countless forces with roots as deep as ancient trees. I'm not strong enough yet. If I catch the eye of those big fish, I'll be swallowed whole. If I'm lucky, they'll just treat me like a rare talent. They'd force me into their ranks, but if my luck runs out, they'll imprison me, strip away my fortune, and squeeze every drop of value from my life. Allying with the Zhou family was a gamble I took only after long deliberation. I kept my expression dead serious as I laid out the gravity of the secret to them. The atmosphere in the car turned heavy, and Zhou Qingling was the first to speak. Don't worry, Qingshan, my father and brother aren't gossips. They'll keep their mouths shut. I'll even destroy the dashcam as soon as we get out, Tianba added firmly. Uncle Zhou nodded, asking for my trust, and I gave it to them before continuing. I explained that cultivation starts with physical and breath training, divided into 9 layers. The first stages focus on the Dragon Tiger Fist, moving into the Dragon Crane Capture style. The final stages master the balance of weight, all powered by the yin-yang breathing technique. Once you master those physical forms, you can begin to manifest true power. At the 4th layer, you can learn spells like the fire art to generate flames from nothing. The size and heat of that fire depend entirely on the strength of your internal cultivation. After the 9th layer comes the foundation establishment stage, the most critical part. It's like building a 100-story skyscraper. Without a solid base, everything collapses. In this stage, you don't just train the body, you study the deeper laws of the world. Then comes the golden core stage, where you condense your essence into a divine pill. But if you rely too much on consuming spirit beasts, you'll form a beast core instead. If you bond too deeply with spirit beasts or plant-type demons, you'll end up forming a tree core or something worse. There are countless ways to form a core: demonic, blood, bone, or even insect cores, but that's a distant concern for now. I'll need to consult the memories of the ancestor who passed this knowledge to me when the time comes. For now, I have to stay grounded and focus on the basics, explaining the system to the Zhou family with total gravity. Tianba and Uncle Zhou listened like eager students, hanging on my every word. They didn't miss a single detail. As they digested the information, their faces tightened with focus and a growing sense of awe toward me. While the rest of the world was panicking during the global mutation, I was already moving. While others were just discovering their supernatural powers, I was already refining my path. They looked at me as if I were a once-in-a-century genius, clearly envious of the luck that brought me this far. Tianba nodded in understanding, and Uncle Zhou reminded him to keep his eyes on the road before turning back to me. With a serious expression, Uncle Zhou told me that in the world of learning, age doesn't matter, only mastery does. He declared that from now on, I would be the master of the Zhou family, leading their cultivation. I felt an invisible weight settle on my shoulders. If I'm their teacher, I have a responsibility to see them succeed. Tianba joked, "I'm in your hands, Master Qingshan," while Qingling smiled and called me master as well. I kept my face stern and promised them I would guide everyone through the gates of cultivation properly. Then Tianba asked, if that giant wolf dropped an inner pill, would I drop one too if I died in my tiger form? I looked at him and told him it was worse than that. It wasn't just a pill he had to worry about. I explained that at a certain level of power, a cultivator might even leave behind a lingering soul after death. The three of them listened with rapt interest, their hunger for power growing as Tianba laughed about needing to protect himself. I shook my head and told him that to avoid being hunted for his pill or skinned for his pelt, he had to change his mindset. I looked at him and said, "Brother Tianba, you need to become so strong that you kill anyone who dares covet your spirit bones." A sharp light flashed in Tianba's eyes for a second before he burst into a loud, booming laugh. "You're a ruthless one, Qingshan," he chuckled. "I like that about you." He appreciated my bluntness, finding it refreshing and completely unpretentious. I just gave him a calm, playful shrug in response. Tianba kept laughing as we shared a rare moment of levity amidst the chaos of the new world. The van moved quickly through the streets until we reached the upscale villa district where the Zhou family lived. Other ability users along the road watched us intently, but Tianba ignored them and kept his foot heavy on the gas. As we pulled into the courtyard of the villa, Lianmei heard the engine from inside and peeked through the window. Recognizing her family, she rushed to the door to greet us immediately. "Mom," Qingling cried out, running toward her mother as the tension of the day finally broke. I watched them embrace, admiring the genuine warmth of the mother-daughter reunion. I took a good look at Lianmei. She was a woman in her 40s who had clearly taken excellent care of herself. Her skin was fair and wrinkle-free, her face full of kindness, and her figure remained sharp and elegant. But beneath the soft exterior, I sensed a trace of hidden darkness and a very decisive aura. It was obvious that Qingling's mother was a woman of action who didn't waste time with nonsense. After hugging her daughter, her gaze shifted to the tattered state of Uncle Zhou and Tianba. "Did you two forget to take off your clothes before transforming again?" she asked, looking at their rags. "You look like savages. Get inside right now and change into something decent." After she finished speaking, Lianmei's sharp gaze shifted and landed squarely on me. I followed Qingling into the house and stepped inside the lavishly decorated villa. I stood in the foyer and obediently swapped my shoes for a pair of guest slippers. "Mom, I'm taking Qingshan to wash up," Qingling called out as she led me away. She practically dragged me through the hallway toward the washroom. I looked around the foyer one last time before we turned the corner. I had followed her lead without a word of protest. Qingling waved to her mother again as we reached the sink. She turned on the water and personally helped me scrub the dried blood off my hands. "Thanks," I said, and she just smiled back, telling me it was nothing. "Professor Qingshan, I'm still counting on you to teach me how to cultivate," she joked. But then, her expression shifted, her voice dropping to a low, serious whisper. "Qingshan, I need to warn you about something," she said, making my posture stiffen. "My mother hates the idea of me having a boyfriend or being intimate with guys this early. This is the first time I've ever brought a male classmate home, so you'll have to handle her." My head started to throb, and I asked her how exactly I was supposed to handle her mother. "Just like you did with my dad and brother. Show her your strength and prove you're useful." "My mother despises men who talk nonsense," she added, revealing the secret to winning her over. I understood the subtext immediately. Lianmei was terrified of her daughter being manipulated. She didn't want Qingling falling for some smooth-talking liar who would just use her. I pictured a delinquent with bleached hair riding a motorcycle. A guy like that always has girls hanging around, so I understood Lianmei's protective instincts. I knew I just had to show her I had depth, skill, and a sense of responsibility. But as for how to actually prove my worth to her, I was a bit lost. Should I show off the dragon tiger boxing style I used on Zhou Tianba and his father? Or should I display some kind of artistic talent? I was overthinking everything. Qingling's voice suddenly broke through my frantic thoughts, telling me it was time to go to the living room. I followed her into the hall, and we sat down on the lavish sofa. Lianmei had set out some fruit and snacks, but Zhou Chuangxiong and Tianba were still busy cleaning up. The three of us sat there in a heavy, awkward silence until Lianmei finally spoke up. "Qingling, is this your classmate?" she asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. Qingling introduced me, explaining that I was Li Qingshan and that she had gone to find me when the mutation began. Lianmei's gaze shifted back to me, sharp and calculating, as she repeated her daughter's words. "So, when the world started falling apart, you asked my daughter to go to your house?" she questioned. She looked at Qingling and added, "It was dangerous out there, yet you ran to him the moment he called. Are you two hiding some kind of secret? Don't worry, I'm open-minded, I won't embarrass you." She wasn't being aggressive yet, she was playing it soft, trying to bait us into a confession. Qingling hesitated, unsure how to explain why she had trusted me so blindly that day. She couldn't just say I had given her a note predicting the end of the world before it even happened. I smiled faintly and decided to take the lead, saying, "Auntie, you're right, there are secrets between us." I was referring to the cultivation method, because if that ever leaked, her entire family would be watched and targeted by the authorities. They'd be threatened with bombs and worse. Did Qingling really have a secret? When we sat there together, a sharp glint of realization flashed in Lianmei's eyes. She raised her voice, pressing for an answer. She suspected her precious daughter was hiding her private life from her. She thought we were secretly dating right under her nose. What? I stood there stunned as I realized where her mind was going. I didn't expect the secret Zhou Qingling's mother meant was about romance. She wasn't thinking about the mutation or our survival skills at all. The misunderstanding was so absurd it made my mouth twitch. "You're not dating Qingling?" she asked. "Then explain this. Why would she run to your house and face this global catastrophe by your side?" Lianmei spoke with a hint of genuine surprise. In her eyes, the situation was crystal clear. She believed the younger generation only shares life and death stakes for love. I shook my head, realizing she thought we were playing out some tragic drama. "Auntie, you've misunderstood. Qingling and I are just good classmates. She came to my house because I have information on how humans can gain power." I explained that I gained my power through this secret, and Lianmei's face shifted. She finally realized she had completely misread the situation. "Mom, what on earth are you thinking?" Zhou Qingling snapped. Her face was flushed a deep, embarrassed red. "I'm not dating Qingshan. I went to him because he knows the truth about the cataclysm. He's the only one who can help me get stronger." Lianmei offered a strained, awkward smile. She went quiet for a moment, then turned her eyes back toward me. "I'll wait for Uncle and Tianba to get here before I explain the secret again," I said. Qingling nodded, adding that she'd tried explaining it to her father and brother once before, but she wasn't sure they truly grasped the gravity of it yet. She wanted me to lay it all out so her mother could finally understand why she left. Lianmei nodded, her relief visible now that the dating scare was over. She set out some fruit, inviting us to eat and fill our stomachs while we waited. I thanked her, dropped the formalities, and grabbed a snack to keep my energy up. A short while later, Zhou Tianba and Zhou Chuanqing finished cleaning up. They changed into comfortable clothes and joined us in the living room. The five of us sat together on the sofas, the air thick with anticipation. "Uncle, Tianba, Annie wants to know the truth behind my abilities," I began. Chuanqing leaned forward, his eyes fixed on me. "Go ahead, Qingshan, we're listening." I started to speak, weaving the tale of the mysterious immortal's guidance. I told them about the dream, and then I moved on to the core of it all. I reached out, touched Qingling, and showed them the dragon bone art and the path of integration. I explained the cultivation systems and the exercises I promised to teach them. After we finished, Lianmei finally understood what this was all about, but she frowned slightly. She saw how I had to touch her daughter to guide her energy, a very private act in her eyes. Lianmei is a bit old-fashioned. She believes that kind of intimacy should be saved for a wedding night. But since it already happened, she couldn't change the past, so she just scrutinized me intensely. After staring at me for a long time, her expression softened into one of appreciation. My logic was sound, my looks were fine, and I had the backing of a mysterious immortal. She thought that if her daughter and I ended up together, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The only problem was that I looked a bit thin and malnourished to her. She decided right then and there that she was going to feed me until I grew stronger. Then she asked if it was true that we could live for hundreds of years and keep our strength. I nodded and told her that higher cultivation naturally extends your lifespan. I mentioned that with the right pills, one could even stay young forever. Lianmei's eyes lit up at the mention of eternal youth. Beauty is everything to her. I spent a long time making sure the Zhou family mastered the basics of immortal cultivation. Then, my expression turned deadly serious as I looked at each of them. "This secret is a taboo," I warned. "If it leaks, people will hunt us out of pure jealousy. If anyone asks, tell them these are just special abilities. Never mention cultivation." "Don't worry about that. I'll keep my mouth shut," Lianmei said with a deadly serious expression. "If even one of us leaks this, the rest are in danger, so we all have to protect this secret." Zhou Chuanxiong nodded, vowing that we would cultivate in secret as a family and grow steadily. The five of us huddled close, our voices low as we reached the house. Everyone reached a consensus, swearing to guard the path of immortality with their lives. Seeing them all so united made me feel a deep sense of satisfaction. Just like that, I had naturally integrated into this family. I was now truly one of them. Mom, the truck outside is full of supplies, Zhou Tianba reminded her. In this chaotic world, supplies are scarce and nothing can be wasted, Zhou Chuanxiong added. Lianmei told us to eat first, then she'd clear out a room so I could live there comfortably. Thank you, Auntie, I said, feeling grateful that I finally had a real home again. We headed to the dining room of the villa for a reunion feast Lianmei had carefully prepared. The table was packed with braised carp, stir-fried squid, soft tofu, and hearty soups. There were sweet and sour ribs and chrysanthemum sausages laid out in a massive spread. Qingling and I had burned a massive amount of energy practicing the dragon bone art and the fist technique. After days of eating nothing but instant noodles at my old place, this fresh food looked like a miracle. We didn't hold back, devouring everything in sight while the others watched us in total shock. Qingshan, Qingling, slow down a little, Lianmei whispered, stunned by our appetites. She watched us eat with a mix of worry and confusion in her heart. She wondered how her daughter had suddenly developed the hunger of a wild animal. I looked up from my plate and saw their stunned faces. Sorry, Auntie, I know our manners are terrible right now, I said between bites. But you have to understand, cultivating the bone art and the dragon tiger fist burns a massive amount of energy. Once you, Uncle, and Tianba start training, your appetites are going to explode too. I explained that eating to total fullness is the foundation of physical training. Qingling blushed slightly, but nodded in agreement. It's true, she added. You only have the strength to cultivate after you've stuffed yourself. Lianmei, Zhou Chuanxiong, and Tianba listened intently to my explanation. Still, they looked at the empty platters and thought this cultivation business seemed a bit unrefined. Once the feast was over, the five of us got to work organizing the supplies from the truck. We sorted through crates of cooking oil, salt, vinegar, and long-term staples like flour and noodles. We decided to prioritize eating the fresh meats that would spoil quickly first. The non-food items like basins, towels, and tools were hauled into the storage room. Lianmei showed me to my new room, and I was genuinely impressed. It was spacious, clean, and the furniture was far better than anything in my old apartment. I touched the bridge of my nose, feeling a sudden wave of emotion. Inside, I thought, this is it. This is my home now. After a quick unpack, I headed back to the main hall where the family was waiting for me. All right, come on, teach us how to cultivate, Tianba shouted impatiently. Zhou Chuanxiong and Lianmei leaned in, their eyes burning with curiosity and hope. Seeing their eagerness to begin, I let a small smile play on my lips. I told them I'd start with the theory behind the bone art before walking them through it step by step. I explained that mastering this technique is all about sensing and refining the world's raw energy. Once we harness this energy, it will circulate through our veins, nourishing our bodies and building a core. Tianba, Uncle Zhou, and Auntie Lianmei all wore dead serious expressions as they hung on my every word. Even Qingling listened intently, using my explanation to refine her own understanding of the path. She realized she needed to absorb even more energy and learn to store it deep within her body. With the theory covered, it was time to move on to the actual cultivation mantra. Listen closely, I warned. You must commit this formula to memory, never write it down on paper. No phones, no notes, and absolutely no recordings, I added, and they all nodded in solemn agreement. I began reciting the essence of the bone art, speaking of mental tranquility and the relaxation of the soul. I told them to focus their gaze, steady their breathing, and draw the light of the world into their minds. I guided them to let that energy descend through the body until it felt present, yet weightless. I described the sensation of the dantian heating up like a boiling cauldron as the practice took hold. The three of them strained to grasp the meaning of these ancient, cryptic words. They were trying so hard to memorize the mantra that I could practically see the gears turning in their heads. I finished the recitation and looked at them. Uncle Zhou was frowning, clearly lost in the complexity. Auntie Lianmei was muttering the words under her breath, struggling to make sense of the rhythm. But Tianba actually had his eyes closed and looked like he was about to drift off to sleep. I let out a dry cough and asked, Hey, Tianba, what exactly do you think you're doing? My voice snapped Tianba awake, and he shook his head violently to chase away the sleep. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking completely embarrassed. This formula makes me feel like I'm swimming in a vast ocean, he muttered. It's full of knowledge, but it's also the best sleep aid I've ever heard. I just stared at him, wondering if he was actually serious about falling asleep. I pressed my lips together, suppressing a sigh after hearing his excuse. It's fine, true knowledge is meant to sharpen the mind, not dull it. I gave a faint smile, amused that my profound technique was being used to cure insomnia. I looked at the group and told them not to worry if the path seemed unclear. It's perfectly normal to struggle with memorizing these cryptic formulas at first. I promised to break down the meaning and show them how to lock it into their memories. Cultivation is a marathon, not a sprint. It won't happen overnight. But within a single month, even the youngest among you will feel like a new person. By then, you should be able to sense the spiritual aura flowing between heaven and earth. Tianba frowned slightly at my words and couldn't help but speak up. Wait a whole month, just to feel the aura that exists in the world? When will we actually be able to absorb that energy and use it? Uncle Zhou chimed in right after his son, asking how long it would take to fully open their meridians. I smiled and told them. 1 month to feel it, half a month to absorb it, and another half to open the meridians. 2 months total. 2 months total, of course, assuming you take this seriously. If you're lazy, your progress will crawl. In my past life, it took me nearly half a year to figure out cultivation on my own. I had no guide back then, but now I possess the yin-yang physique. With my experience, I'm confident I can lead Uncle Zhou to success in 2 months. Tianba and Lianmei will have their meridians fully open by then too. Uncle Zhou nodded, a flash of determination in his eyes as he promised to study hard. Lianmei echoed him, but Tianba frowned and asked why it would take them so long. My sister only took a single day to open her meridians, he pointed out. I explained that Qinglin and I have the yin-yang constitution, making cultivation effortless. Qinglin puffed out her chest with pride, boasting about her rare talent. Tianba looked at her with pure envy, making me let out a small chuckle. I told him our early combat power is actually low, not like his raw strength. I promised that once we grow stronger, we'll help the rest of them ascend to higher levels. Tianba smiled, but Uncle Zhou cut him off to keep us focused on the task. Let's stop the small talk and start cultivating, Uncle Zhou urged. I was surprised by how serious he was, but it honestly satisfied me. I nodded and told them all to concentrate and give it their everything. Chapter 35, Busy Living, Busy Dying. I touched my fingertips together and began teaching them the Eye of God formula. I broke down every word of the Eye of God formula for Uncle Zhou, Tianba, and Lianmei. Even as night fell and they went to bed, the young couple had no interest in romance. They stayed up late whispering about the formula, while Tianba muttered the verses until he drifted off. In my own room, I activated the yin-yang technique before entering a deep sleep. It clears the mind of distractions, ensuring a cultivator gets the highest quality of rest. The following days were quiet as the Zhou family locked the doors and focused entirely on their training. I stayed incredibly busy, acting as the primary instructor for Uncle Zhou, Tianba, and Lianmei. On top of that, I had to personally guide Qinglin through the Dragon Tiger Fist. With the villa stocked with food and water, we had no reason to step foot outside. I gathered everyone to discuss the inevitable loss of utilities, pointing out our backup supplies. We filled every bucket and bottle we could find, knowing the generator would only last so long. Time flew by like an arrow as we settled into our new, disciplined routine. By the third day, the power grid finally gave out, plunging the entire neighborhood into darkness. Luckily, our generator kicked in, providing just enough energy to keep us going. For days later, the taps ran dry, and not a single drop of water came from the faucets. For a full week, the 5 of us remained sealed inside the villa, focused only on our path. The sounds of distant fighting occasionally echoed from the streets outside, but we stayed calm and ignored the chaos, as if we were merely spectators to a play. Uncle Zhou and the others have already memorized the formulas and are now sensing the world's energy. Meanwhile, Qinglin has mastered the Dragon Tiger Fist at a speed that honestly surprises me. Qinglin needs to practice his boxing every day to constantly push his body to its limits. Between his training and my own, the food stored in the villa is vanishing at an alarming rate. We originally had enough supplies to last an ordinary family for at least 2 months. But with everyone training like possessed warriors, we're running out of food in just a little over a week. 2 more days passed before Uncle Zhou and Tianba finally approached me. They suggested we head out to scavenge for more supplies to keep the household running. My role as their teacher has naturally made me the authority figure in this house. I flatly rejected their proposal, telling them to focus only on getting stronger for now. They didn't argue, they just gritted their teeth and went back to training on empty stomachs. Meanwhile, inside the first floor of Building 18 in the Hexian complex, a nightmare is unfolding. A massive, pulsating monster made of raw flesh is gorging itself in the darkness. It's the size of a bedroom, covered in disgusting, uneven lumps of throbbing meat. Its limbs look like 4 thick, featureless tentacles, twitching with unnatural strength. Piles of frozen meat and dehydrated corpses are stacked high in front of the beast. The creature has 2 mouths that never stop chewing, using a long tongue to snatch up every scrap. As it eats, its body swells, growing larger and more grotesque with every bite. Sunwon stands beside the monster, her face twisted into a manic, terrifying grin. Is it delicious, mother? She asks, laughing as she looks at the mountain of flesh. The monster lets out a piercing, screeching sound through its largest mouth in response. A severed leg from a fallen ability user flew through the air and landed right in the monster's maw. The creature began to gnaw on the bone with a sickening crunch as Sunwon watched with pride. My powers let me absorb death energy to grow stronger, she whispered to the hulking mass of flesh. And once these ability users die, their corpses become the perfect fuel for your new bodies. She smiled wider, her face glowing with a twisted sense of prosperity as the monster's mouth twitched. In our building, Block 18, how many families are left? The creature seemed to rumble. Sunwon checked her mental list and replied, there are 21 floors in total. Every ability user below the 6th floor has already been wiped out and cleared away. I've moved all the useful supplies down to the 1st floor for you, Mom and Dad. Your bodies are too massive to climb the stairs now, so just stay here and block the exit. Unless they have wings, no one is getting out of this building alive. I'll go door to door to drag the rest out and take everything they have. A flash of ruthless light gleamed in her eyes as she planned her next hunt. Her parents had been starving, and with no other way to get food, they had transformed into these blood-soaked beasts. Between the hunger and the constant, endless battles for survival, Sun 1 had finally snapped. She unleashed her monster parents on the other residents, turning the building into a slaughterhouse. She quickly realized that with her parents' raw power, no other ability user could stand against them. They invaded floor by floor, hunting down anyone with power and hoarding their resources. Now, with 4 floors cleared, they've turned the lobby into a death trap to keep their prey caged. The monster's massive mouth opened wide, ready to consume the next soul Sun 1 brought home. Sun 1 spoke up, saying, "Don't worry, son, your parents are holding the line here. No ability user can escape, but the upper floors and hallways are packed too tight. If we go up there, the entire building will collapse under our weight. So, son, focus on what's left, but be careful. Your life is the most important thing. If you can't beat them, run back down to us." The monster's small mouth rumbled. Looking at the hideous, massive beast before me, my eyes filled with a strange pride. I nodded and said, "Don't worry, Dad, I know my limits." Even though this monster was grotesque, it gave me a profound sense of security. With a constant diet of fresh meat, my parents had become incredibly powerful. They were stronger than me now, though their massive size made them slow. They were like a living fortress, a divine tower guarding the only exit. After talking with them, I walked into the lobby area we had turned into a warehouse. Piles of rice, bread, pasta, and drinks were stacked high alongside liquor and oils. This place used to be a beautifully decorated home, but now it was my personal treasury. Looking at all this food, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This will last us a long time, I thought, and it's going to taste delicious. This was exactly why I spent my days raiding the homes of everyone else. I checked the next room, which was filled with daily essentials like lighters and toiletries. The final room was stuffed with gold, cash, and electronics I had scavenged. They were worthless now, but I kept them anyway, just in case the world turned back. I set my sights on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. I needed a moment to recover my strength first. Once darkness fell, I would wait for the residents upstairs to relax. The moment they lowered their guard, I'd head back up to finish them off. Meanwhile, across the villa district where I lived, the rest of the household was gathering together. Zhou Tianba, Zhou Chuanxiong, Zhou Qingling, and Lian Mei, all 5 of them were in the center of the house. They were holding a meeting, arguing about our food situation. Lian Mei spoke up with a worried look, saying there wasn't much left. If we ration everything, we only have enough for 2.5 days. Zhou Chuanxiong frowned, noting that every supermarket was empty. There was no way to buy supplies, leaving them wondering what to do. Zhou Tianba slammed his oversized fist onto the table and spoke. "We steal." He suggested we take supplies from others, just like we did before. His words echoed through the room, and everyone realized it was the only way. "But which family are we going to rob?" Zhou Qingling asked. She worried that stealing from just anyone would be too immoral. Even though she wasn't a saint, she struggled with the idea of being that cruel. She looked at me and said, "Young Master Qingshan, you're so calm. It seems like you already have a plan in mind." Zhou Chuanxiong, Lian Mei, Zhou Qingling, and Zhou Tianba all turned toward me. Their eyes were fixed on me, waiting to see what I had come up with. "I haven't seen you worried at all lately," Zhou Qingling added. 2 days ago, they had already brought up the food shortage to me. At the time, I told them not to worry and to focus on their cultivation first. But as the rations dwindled, they were forced to raise the issue again. I looked at them and said, "I know a place where we can get food, a warehouse full of supplies. But now that everyone has powers, taking it won't be easy. We'll have to defeat other powered individuals, so prepare yourselves for battle." My expression turned cold and serious as I spoke. Zhou Qingling looked puzzled and asked, "A warehouse? How do you know about that?" Zhou Chuanxiong immediately voiced his confusion as well. Lian Mei and Zhou Tianba just stared at me, waiting for an explanation. I told them, the day the powers arrived, I started watching the local supermarkets. I noticed the Yonghui supermarket was moving massive amounts of stock. So I hailed a taxi and followed them secretly to see where it was going. I discovered they were storing everything in a secret warehouse on the outskirts of town. If we take that warehouse, we'll have an endless supply of food. Of course, most of what I was telling them was a total lie. In my past life, I remembered this suburban warehouse was packed with massive amounts of supplies. The original owner planned to hoard everything to make a fortune and become a warlord in the chaos. But he didn't expect that after 6 months of hardship, the world would change again. This land somehow transformed into a cultivation continent teeming with new opportunities. His secret stash was eventually discovered and exposed to the public by other awakened users. In my previous life, even I managed to scavenge some supplies from there and enjoy a few decent meals. I knew exactly what kind of combat power we were up against in that warehouse. The defense was just the boss, his relatives, and a few employees, about 40 people in total. They were weak individually and relied entirely on their numbers to intimidate others. Once they were exposed, they had no way to protect themselves and were slaughtered. There are definitely other hidden stockpiles like this all over the city of Lansing. But hoarding supplies is a short-term game because in 6 months, the climate will shift violently. Lansing will collide with the cultivation continent, and we'll have to survive in a brand new civilization. In that new world, powerful sects and imperial dynasties will control everything. As long as you have actual skill, you won't starve to death there. So there's no point in conquering dozens of warehouses here just to play king of the hill. It's better to keep a low profile, develop steadily, and focus entirely on becoming stronger. In the world of cultivation, if you are powerful enough, you can change the world with a single footstep. After I finished explaining the plan, the Zhou family huddled together to discuss their next move. Zhou Qingling and Zhou Tianba understood exactly what I was getting at. Tianba's eyes lit up as he realized the potential of that suburban warehouse. If we take it, our family won't have to worry about food for the rest of our lives. Zhou Qingling just rolled her eyes at her older brother's lack of foresight. Brother, don't forget that processed food has an expiration date. At most, we'd only be able to eat off that stash for a few years. Tianba smacked his forehead and laughed. Right? Then we eat for a few years first. He lowered his voice, recalling my warning about Blue Star merging with another world. We fill our stomachs now, then figure out that cultivation continent when we get there. Zhou Chuanqing nodded in agreement and started asking for the specifics. How far is this warehouse from our current position? He asked. I told him it was about 30 kilometers away, a quick trip if the roads were clear. If we take it, do we move the family there or bring the supplies back? I shook my head because that warehouse was a total death trap. That place is a hot potato, I said. We take what we need and bring it back here. Zhou Chuanqing nodded, but he still looked concerned about the logistics. A warehouse that big must have heavily armed guards, he pointed out. Our family only has 5 ability users. Can we actually win this fight? They trusted my word completely, already shifting their focus to the battle plan. Zhou Qingling agreed, knowing that if we didn't take it, someone else would. We don't know how strong the ability users at that warehouse are, Liang said, her voice trembling. If one of us gets hurt, there are no clinics left, let alone hospitals. She knew a serious injury in this world was just a slow death sentence. Lian couldn't bear the thought of her family, or even me, getting killed out there. I knew they'd be worried, which is why I waited until the food was almost gone to bring this up. I already knew exactly what kind of combat power we were up against in that warehouse. I had already mapped out a countermeasure, so I put on my most serious expression. I looked at them and uttered one word, gorilla. Zhou Chuansheng, Qingling, Lian, and Tianba all locked their eyes on me. They were waiting for me to explain how we'd pull off a hit and run on a fortified position. Chapter 38, Guerrilla Warfare. The family started brainstorming how to make it work. After a moment of silence, Zhou Qingling was the first to speak up. I think we should scout the warehouse and the surrounding terrain first, she suggested. We count their ability users, gather intel, and then strike when we have the advantage. She believed in the old, know your enemy mantra, but she felt my guerrilla idea was premature. Tianba nodded and said, Qingling is right, but I want to hear your specific strategy, Master Qingshan. I nodded and told them, what Qingling said is true, but that's only the first step. The guerrilla tactics I'm talking about are specifically designed to dismantle that warehouse. Then tell us the best way, Qingshan, Zhou Qingling said, her eyes shining with curiosity. She leaned in close, desperate to hear the plan I had brewing in my head. Zhou Qingling has a strong personality and isn't the type to just follow orders blindly. I didn't mind her independence. In fact, I supported it. I knew that even with 2 lifetimes of experience, I wasn't perfect and could still make mistakes. I looked at the 4 of them and said, Uncle, Auntie, Qingling, Tianba, there are only 5 of us. Our total numbers can't match a whole warehouse full of ability users, but our individual power is far superior. Uncle and Tianba are strong enough to take down several ability users on their own. We'll sabotage them, wound a few of their men, fire a shot, and move before they can react. Once they realize we're too much trouble to handle, we'll force them to the negotiating table. We'll demand food in exchange for peace. Otherwise, we'll leak the warehouse's location to the entire public. If everyone knows where the stash is, they won't be able to protect it for long. I laid out the strategy, drawing from the practical warfare experience of the ancestors. Zhou Chuanqing nodded and said, it's a good plan, as long as they don't have anyone truly monstrous. Tianba rubbed his hands together, grinning as he said, I've been dying to test my new combat power. He saw this ambush as the perfect trial for his strength. We agreed to test the waters first to make sure the guerrilla tactics would hold up. Lian sat at the edge of the table, nodding her head in silent approval of the plan.